All right, you guys, I am super excited about this course. This is a long time coming. I've always wanted a virtual environment where I could play without irrevocably breaking something, right? A place where I could iterate and experiment. That's what EVE-NG offers you. It's the perfect platform to train yourself on security vendor products like, Juniper, Palo Alto, F5, Windows, Cisco. It gives you really a safe playground where you can hone your skills, gain the confidence you need, and then secure a high-paying job in either information technology or cybersecurity or even development. You can build enterprise-grade networks, reproduce real architectures, and it's just amazing. Now, you can do some of this in GNS3, but that was the old way of doing things. EVE-NG is the modern approach to virtualization. And the true benefit is that you'll have the real operating systems and the real infrastructure components like the Cisco firewalls or Cisco routers, the Cisco switches, the big IP, web application firewalls. You can set up a DMZ and you can have a vulnerable web application there and you can attack it and look at the logs as it's sent through Splunk, whatever your security information and events monitoring tool is. My point is, this is perfect if you're studying for like the CCNA or the CCNP or Network Plus, Security Plus, Palo Alto, or any other networking related exam. EVE-NG will carry you through. Now, there's some really good news here. There's a free version. Yes, so there's paid and free. Now, you might think, okay, well, the free version probably doesn't have as many features. That is true, it doesn't. But fortunately, what it lacks is inconsequential to what you'll need to accomplish your professional objectives. And this is what I mean. So we're going to go to eveng.net. Don't forget that dash between the EVE and NG, or you'll end up someplace else, right? And there's a couple of different editions. There's a professional edition. There's a community edition. So if we click on the features, you can click on compare. And this will show you the variation there. So you can see here it's 99 euros. I think that's like $105, 105 US dollars right now for the professional. But you're not really missing out a lot on the free version. Okay, the main thing you'll notice is the node limit. The nodes are it's like the virtual machines. Okay, think about it like that. And you're getting 63 with the free version and over 1,000 with the professional. You're not gonna really need more than 63 VMs, right? I mean, you might have a domain controller, a Windows workstation joined to that domain. Maybe you have a few servers. Maybe you have a firewall in the DMZ, a web application. But still, that's less than a dozen. I mean, 63 is ample. That is copious space to explore and have fun. You can see local web Wireshark capture. You can take Wireshark. I don't know why it's showing that's not available in the professional version, which is kind of funny. Oh, that's because it's integrated with the professional version. Bottom line is you still have Wireshark no matter you go. If you go community or pro, anywhere you go, they've got you covered. And there's a few other things, but there's nothing really significant. So you're good. You're good to go. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, Vine, this is great. You can build this full environment. What are the requirements? I'm glad you asked. So in order to do this, you're going to need a beefy box, but you don't need a super beefy box, right? So the requirements are at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. You want a 40 gigabyte hard drive at minimum, and you want an Intel i5 or i7 processor. You also need to make sure that Intel virtualization is enabled in the BIOS. Otherwise, your images won't work, especially the Cisco images. And of course, you need network connectivity. But really, to be honest, the requirements come down to your sizing requirements. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? If you're building just a simple lab with, maybe a Windows machine joined to the domain and you just want to push some group policies down to that endpoint, you only have 2 nodes in that setup. You're not going to need anything really beefy. But if you want to build out, a full architecture environment replete with a DMZ and, a security monitoring solution, that's going to require more hardware, obviously. But the bottom line is EVE-NG can make your dreams come true. The only part that's a little bit complicated is the nested virtualization. So let me show you my system requirements first, and then we'll talk about that. Okay, so here you can see my desktop. I'm running an i7 processor. I happen to have 32 gigabytes of RAM. and I have about a terabyte of hard drive space. You can see I'm running Windows 10 Pro. So my box is kind of beefy, but it's not super beefy, right? And remember, 8 gigabytes is just the minimum. I have 32, I'm a little bit over. But my point is, don't let the specs scare you. Just try it. Just try to make it work even with your current system. It may still work. It may just be a little bit slow. Now, if you want to look at the virtualization, how to set that up, you can type Intel Virtualization Technology BIOS. And you can see there's some settings here. So it's not that hard. I just can't show it to you here because I can't, my screen capture program doesn't work in the pre-boot environment. But basically you would just type in Intel Virtualization Technology BIOS and then whatever laptop you have, if it's Asus, MSI, HP, Lenovo, and then you'll get the instructions on how to set that up. All right, guys. So that's all I wanted to cover in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to get things going with step number 1, which is downloading our hypervisor. We have to use VMware Workstation Pro. EVE-NG does not work with VirtualBox. In fact, if you go back to the requirements in the documentation, you can see here that VirtualBox is not listed. So please, please, please follow my lead. In the next lecture, we're going to download and install VMware Workstation. All right, guys, are you ready for this? Are you ready to learn? Are you ready to master information technology and cybersecurity? Are you ready to finally have the confidence you need to lead a meeting or to train other people or just to feel good about yourself because you finally know what the heck you're doing? You know, imposter syndrome, it's time to go away and you will now become an expert. All right, guys, let's do this. I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye. All right, you guys, so now we're going to build the foundation for our EVE-NG environment, and it begins with VMware Workstation Pro. So when we talk about VMware Workstation, we're thinking about hypervisors, and there are really 2 types, type 1 and type 2. A hypervisor is really just an application that lies to a virtual machine about hardware, memory, and processing power. The virtual machines think they actually have real CPUs that belong just to them, but the hypervisor is provisioning access and transparently sharing that access between multiple virtual machines without the VM's knowledge, right? So that's what the hypervisor does. The type 1 hypervisor is located directly on the computer's physical hardware. These are also known as bare metal hypervisors. Proxmox, VMware's EXXi is an example of that. What we're doing is installing a type 2 hypervisor. And this is kind of like Hyper-V, VMware Player, VirtualBox, and VMware Workstation Pro. So let me show you how to both download and install our hypervisor here. So I'm on VMware's website. This site might change, but the idea is you want to go to their site and you want to find the place where under their products, you see there's a place to download Workstation Pro. So fortunately for us, there is a trial. I believe it's 30 days right now. You see it says buy online. We're not going to do that. We're just going to scroll down and click try Workstation 16 Pro. All right, and now we can scroll down and we can download the version for Windows. So I'll just click download now. All right, so VMware Workstation is now downloaded. Let's install. Okay, it took a solid 4 minutes to get to this point. So all we're going to do is click next. And here my installation is saying, do you want to change, repair, or remove? Because I already have VMware Workstation Pro installed. But for you, you're just going to click install. And for me, I'll just click repair. All right, so now we can click finish and then we can reboot. Now your installation might have asked you about enhanced keyboard support. If it did, make sure you enable that. It'll just make it easier to type inside the virtual machines once we have everything set up. And we've got VMware Workstation Pro. So let's just create a folder. I'm going to open up the library here. And then in the computer part, I will say new folder. I'm just going to right click on it. So I right clicked on computer, said new folder, and I'm just going to name it EVE-NG. And that is where we will place the EVE-NG virtual machine. All right, guys, and that's what we'll do in the next lecture. So I'll see you in a little bit once we get EVE-NG set up. Peace. All right, so we've got VMware Workstation Pro set up and installed. Now we just need to get EVE-NG. So we're going to head on over to eve-ng.net, click download. And what we want to do is select the free Eve Community Edition. And here you can see the latest version. And if there's actually only one hard drive, which is 50 gigabytes in size, don't worry, we're going to add additional hard drives. EVE-NG is essentially going to be the container for our entire lab environment. All right, now there are two options. We can get the OVF or the ISO. The OVF is a lot easier to set up. You could use the ISO if you want, but you'll have less hangups and it'll just go a lot smoother if you use the OVF. So I'm going to click the Google mirror and we'll get this download going. All right, so I can't grab it. Too many users have viewed or downloaded this file. Let's try Mega. All right, there it is. It's about a little over 1 gigabyte. Let's grab it. Standard download. All right, so as you can see, this is going to take some time. That's the reason why I wanted Google, because it goes a little bit faster. But we'll wait for this to finish and we'll come back when it's done. All right, so it's all done. You can see we've got the zip file. And in order to open zips, we need a tool like 7-zip. So let's go ahead and type 7zip.org. That's 7-zip.org. And we can just download the latest version. All right, so we'll get the latest version of 7-zip, 64-bit for x64. And it looks like it finished downloading. Nice, that was like the quickest install ever. And now we just need to import Eve into VMware Workstation. All right, here we go. Here is Eve. I'm just going to right click and say 7-zip. And I'm going to extract to this folder right here. All right, so we'll let this go and we'll come back once it's done. Nice. All right, so now we've got our extracted folder. Let's double click it and you'll notice there is a .vmdk. That's the virtual hard drive. And then we have the .ovf, the Open Virtualization Format file. This is exactly what we want. So when we double click this, it will import into VMware Workstation. You can see VMware Workstation leaps to the foreground and says, hey, give me a name. So we'll name it EVE-NG. And make sure you put it in a location where you have ample storage space. If you have multiple drives, just browse to those locations and save there. I'm going to click import and then we will let this process start. This could take some time. It will take some time, not could. So we'll let this go and then we'll come back when it's done. All right, so the import finished. First thing we're going to do is drag the VM into the EVE-NG folder. Just like so, just to make things organized. Now we need to modify these values here. And we can't keep it the way it is. 8 gigabytes is the minimum, that is true. Processors may work with 4, but the hard disk, we need to add another drive and we need to add another adapter and change this current adapter from bridged to NAT. So I'll explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it as we go through this section, all right? So here we go, guys. Let's jump into memory. And we're gonna have to set the memory for this appliance. Now, my local system has 32 gigabytes of RAM. Here you can see I've got 32 gigabytes. Yours might say 16. That's fine. Just adjust this value accordingly. I'm going to put mine to 16 since I have 32. If you have 16, just keep yours at 8. If you have a total of 8 gigabytes of RAM on your physical machine, your laptop or desktop, then you really can't allocate all of it to this virtual machine, right? By this, I mean EVE-NG, because then you won't have any memory for the host operating system, Windows. So just keep that in mind there. So now that we've got the RAM set up for processors, you have to make sure that virtualized Intel VT is checked. If this is unchecked, you will run into major issues when you try to build your labs. So make sure that this is checked. And if it's not, you can just Google Intel VTX or Intel virtualization BIOS, and then your laptop manufacturer, and they'll give you steps on how to set it up. Each manufacturer is different, but it usually requires booting into the BIOS and going into the advanced section and then just enabling virtualization. For processors, I'm going to set this to 8 by setting 2 cores per processor. Now for hard disk, what you don't want to do is expand, and you don't want to delete. We want to add. Now, unfortunately, you can't see the add button on the screen. I can't resize this window, but I'm just going to click add, and then I'll add my hard drive, keeping all the recommended settings. Then when we get here, we want a minimum size of 200 gigabytes, and we want to store the virtual disk as a single file. This part right here is done for performance optimization, and the top part here is the minimum requirement by EVE-NG. And this is, remember, going to be the virtual disk. Let me click next. That will live wherever you put it. If you have a network attached storage or an external drive, or you have sufficient space on your physical hard drive, you can just store it there. But this is going to be the virtual disk along with this one. So both of these hard disks will hold your VM images. So you, of course, need to make sure you have sufficient space here. And obviously I need at least 250 gigabytes of space on my host operating system, my physical Windows system, right? Probably more than that to host the operating system itself. So just make sure you plan this accordingly. Then we have a network adapter, which we need to flip over to NAT. Click into USB controller and then click back, and you'll see it changed to NAT. Now we will add an additional network adapter by clicking add. Can't see that button. I can't show it to you because it's off screen and I can't resize the window, but trust me, I'm clicking the add button. And here we'll select network adapter and we'll change it to host only. Nice. Press enter. And you want to have something like this. And by I mean your memory and processors might be less, but it can't be any less than 8 gigabytes for memory and 4 for processors. And your hard disk needs to be at least at 200 gigabytes for the secondary hard drive. And then make sure your networking is set to NAT right here and host only for the other one. Now what's going to happen is when we boot this thing up, this appliance is going to boot and it's going to get an IP address dynamically. So here you can see with NAT for my system, I'm on the 192.168.226 network. And use local DHCP service to distribute IP addresses to VMs is checked. So this EVE-NG VM should get an IP address on the .226 subnet. And look at that, it did, .226.128. All right, guys, so we did it here. In the next lecture, we will log in and configure EVE-NG. See you in a little bit. Peace. All right, so let's go ahead and log in. We are ready. Log in as root, and Eve is the password. So we'll again type the root password, which is Eve, and Eve. You're not going to see anything reflected back, but trust me, you're typing. It's just not reflecting your keystrokes back to the terminal. All right, so we'll keep the host name as Eve-NG. And you can type a DNS name for the system. I'm going to put mine to security+pro.local. Hit OK. So DHCP is OK. NTP, we'll just leave it empty since we're not using it right now. And then we will configure the connection for direct connection and we'll hit OK. All right, so we're rebooted. Let's log back in as root Eve and we will run apt update. This just downloads a table of contents of all the files that are available for update. And then we'll run apt upgrade, tac Y to upgrade everything and to say yes to any prompts. And this will just upgrade our EVE-NG appliance to the latest and greatest. So you definitely want to do this. And then once this is done, we will reboot the box and then we'll type the IP address in the browser and we'll be presented with the EVE-NG GUI login interface. Guys, we're making progress. If you've gotten this far, you're making great strides and I'm proud of where you've come. All right, so we're going to let it do its thing, and then we'll come back when it's finished. Oh, I did forget about this. It is asking us about the configuration for Grub. What we'll do is just keep the local version currently installed. So we'll just hit OK. All right, we're all done. That took about 5 minutes, so we can reboot. And then when it comes back up, we can put the EveNG IP into our browser, then log into the GUI. And in fact, we should actually create a snapshot of this. So technically, we could go to Workstation and then VM snapshot and take a snapshot. Right. So you can see here, the snapshots is saving the state, but already we have the GUI address. So let's go ahead and type that into our browser. Yes. All right, so we've got the native console and HTML5. Native will allow us to use the tools that we'll install in the next lecture. But I just want to show you what it looks like once you log in. Here we are. Okay guys, so we'll get into the GUI and all of this and what this means in a future lecture. But in the next lecture, we're going to install the EveNG Windows client, and you'll see why we need that. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, you guys, so now we're going to install the EveNG Windows Client Integration Pack. Now, this is really helpful software when it comes to actually interacting with your virtual machines, because it will load the native application, for example, Putty or Wireshark, on your physical Windows laptop host machine instead of launching another browser window and having an emulated environment inside the browser. It just makes it a more realistic and pleasurable experience. So what we can do is click download, right? And then we want to go Windows client side. And what we want here is this. This is the Windows client side pack, and it installs everything necessary for running Telnet, VNC, so we can get, virtual desktops on our VMs, RDP applications. And so we'll get Wireshark, we'll get Ultra VNC, Putty, all the necessary wrappers, everything we need to interact with our virtual environment as if it were a real environment. So we can just click on the Windows integration pack. You can see this goes to Mega. So I'm just going to click the download. Let's go ahead and grab it from Mega. All right, so it's only 61 megabytes. We'll click download, start standard download. This should be done pretty quickly. All right, that was super fast. Great. So now we can go ahead and run this utility. All right, so we'll say next. So it's going to put everything in this folder here. You can see here, you really don't want to change the folder location. It's like there's a typo there. But you don't want to change this. You just want to keep everything the way it is. So click next. And we're getting everything here. This is all the utilities we need so that we can interact with the virtual machines and appliances inside of our virtual environment. So you can pick your language. And we're just going to go through the wizard. This is for Ultra VNC. And this will allow us to remote into the various virtual machines. It's going to keep the defaults. Not going to really change anything here. And we'll leave everything the way it is. If we need to change any settings later, we can, but it should work straight out of the box. So we'll just leave these defaults. And really, you're just going to do this through all of the wizards. Just make sure that you click through the wizards, next, finish, until everything is installed. And if you get something like this, yep, I'll uninstall the older version. So npcap is already installed, so we don't need to worry about that. And we don't need to install USB cap. All right, let's next out of this wizard, and we'll just click finish. And that's it for the client pack setup. So what we'll do in the next lecture is install WinSCP. That way we can use the secure copy protocol, that is SSH for file transfer, to remote into our EVE-NG appliance and copy over our images. All right, so I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Peace. All right, you guys, we are making progress. I love progress. It means we're advancing forward. We're getting closer to accomplishing your goals, all right? And the final step really in the setup process is getting WinSCP. So we need this utility. It's really, really awesome. You might have already used it. I'm just going to Google for WinSCP, but it's a way that we can use a GUI to transfer files from our host, that is our physical machine, to our guest VM, which is EVE-NG, sitting here in a powered off state right now. All right, so the way that we can get files into EVE-NG from our host box is using WinSCP. It's one of the easiest ways to do it. It's like Windows Explorer. You can drag and drop files in both directions, and it's going to be really useful when we copy our images, like our Windows images or Cisco images, into our environment. So as you can imagine, it's pretty simple. We just click download now, and we just grab the latest version. Download WinSCP. All right, so we've got it. Let's go ahead and launch it. All right, so we will accept the license agreement, and we will do a full upgrade. Since I already have WinSCP installed, it's asking me if I want to upgrade. So that's what I'll do in my case. In your case, you'll just do the regular installation, and we'll click install. And really, it's that simple. I know you guys like easy, right? So we can launch WinSCP. I'm just going to uncheck the getting started page. You really don't need to look at that. So here we are in WinSCP. On the left, we have my local machine, and on the right, we have the remote machine, which we don't currently have configured. But we could, of course, always start a new session by clicking new session, and then we would just put in the IP address of our EVE-NG host. So I can actually edit this one and put the updated information in here. And once we did that, we would be able to connect. So let me show you. I'm going to power this machine on. All right, and you can see our IP right there. So let's go ahead and put that in. .226.128. And the password is Eve. So we can click save. And now we've just updated this information here, right? So we've got these settings saved. And if I click login, I can log in normally, or I can log in with PuTTY. And the reason why PuTTY is showing up is because we installed the Windows EVE-NG integration client pack, right? So I'm going to click login. And it should present us with the SSH fingerprint if we put everything in correctly. Looks like it's timing out. That is the right IP, 168.226.128. Let's see, can I log in this way? Root Eve, yep. ipconfig, ifconfig, not ipconfig. IPA, less. 226.128, yes. This web application is not running, which is kind of interesting. So it's like it's not really up. Let's go to the EVE-NG website and see if we can figure out what's going on. FAQ. How to recover from backup, how to stop the nodes. Let's see. How to reset the Eve management IP settings. We might need to do that. Possibly need to run this. Let's see, dpackage-l EVE-NG. Let's make sure it's still installed. Okay, so it's still showing it's installed. Is it running? I am seeing the process running. I mean, I just started up the VM, so it should be working. I mean, I guess we could reboot. That should really have nothing to do with it. Let's make sure our adapters are still active. They are enabled. Huh. That IP address is not right. So this is VMnet 8. Let's take a look at that adapter. Edit Virtual Network Editor. Now here it's saying VMnet 8 is connected. Let's go ahead and change settings. Let's see, bridged VMnet 8 NAT. Use local, yep, that's what we want. Everything looks good here. Let's restore defaults. Power off all virtual machines first. Okay, so what we'll do is this. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say power, shut down guest. Then I will restore the defaults for all the networking inside of our virtual environment. Because the way it's configured, the way it's set up right now, it should be working. Like, I don't know why it's not working. So this is a troubleshooting step. This is something you might encounter, right? That's why I'm leaving this in the recording. I want you guys to see how I methodically think through these problems so you can do it on your own, right? You can kind of replicate my critical thinking skills. If we go here, we can actually see the adapters being created. Look, you saw it just pop back in here, right? So we can see them getting created as it's happening. All right, so they're back. Looks like we've got all this information back here. So I'll click OK. All right, now we'll power on the virtual machine. We're gonna have to actually stop this connect because the IP changed. Probably need to go back in here and edit that. Let's go here, power on the virtual machine. And while that's working, I just want to verify the settings. NAT and host only, that is right. And they're both connected. They're connected here too. All right, let's see what IP address we get this time. 192.168.126.128. It wasn't 126 the first time, was it? I thought it was 226. Maybe that was the problem. Obviously, when you guys watch this recording, you'll know if that's the mistake I made. But let's see. Oh man, it worked immediately now. Okay, this is what should happen. So I apologize if it was actually if it was just a mere typo. I don't know if that third octet changed when I reset the network adapter, or if I just didn't see that the 2 is actually a 1. But in any case, what we can do is we're going to say yes to connect, and now we are actually inside the root of our appliance, which is really cool. So we've got WinSCP is working. We're browsing the file system through the GUI. And what we'll do in the next lecture is we will explore the GUI, right? Let's go ahead and change this, because we haven't actually done that yet. So if I log in with admin, password Eve, sure, I'll save that. This is what we need to get comfortable with. So I'll show you guys the GUI in the next lecture. Talk in a little bit. Peace. All right, what's up, you guys? So we've got everything we need to get started with Eve NG. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to log in with username admin, password Eve, and I will select the native console because it's better than the HTML5 console. It makes you log into the VMs as if it were a real production environment. You use the built-in tools on your host operating system to interact with your virtual switches, your virtual machines, and all that good stuff. So when I click sign in, you'll see this file manager, right? Now, you can see I'm logged in as admin. And the way this typically works is you'll group your labs into different folders. So let's say you're studying for the CCNA. I'll type CCNA, I'll click add folder, right? Now I've got this folder. I can rename it, I can delete it, or I can move into it. Now, if I click it, I'm inside of this folder, And inside, I could add a new lab. I can name this lab VLANs, right? It's all about VLANs. VLAN, the version is 1. Author, put my name in here. Into your description. And then you can save it. The required fields have a little star next to it. So like name and version, those are required. When I do that, it'll take me into this environment. Now this is really, really awesome. So the first thing you'll see is you can add an object. You can browse different nodes. You can check out the networks, look up startup configurations, view any configured objects. And then there's more actions. You can refresh the topology if things get stuck or frozen. You can also zoom in and out. So you don't zoom in and out by mouse wheeling in or out. What you do is you mouse over to this little zoom button and then you drag the slider left or right. You can see the status of EVE-NG, and here you can see the CPU usage and memory usage. Obviously nothing's happening because we don't have any nodes running right now, but this is a good way you can check on the system status if you were troubleshooting something. You can look at the lab details. So it'll show you a lab ID, and this lab ID is something that can come in handy. Here it is. When you're trying to reference the lab programmatically, like through an API, which you probably won't be doing, but it's good to know it's there. And there's our lab name, right? Okay, we can lock the lab. So when we add nodes, you can drag them around. If you click lock lab, it'll lock those elements so they can't be dragged. And then dark mode, which is what I love because it just looks sexy. Then of course we have light mode. I'm gonna go dark. And then of course you can close the lab if you wanted to. And you'll see the file here. We can clone it, right? And then we could just rename this, maybe VLANs Advanced. Very easy to do this. You can select multiple labs if you wanted to. You can move those to different folders. You can delete those selected labs, and you can even import and export. So you can import labs from your colleagues or friends, and then you can export your lab to anyone else. So if they have the same architecture that you have in your lab, they can actually view your lab, and you guys can work together. You can collaborate as you study. Very, very cool. You can, of course, toggle the order, and you can refresh. So if we go up one, I'm just going to click on this top parent folder. I can create a new folder. Let's call it Network Plus. Now I've got the Network Plus folder. I could delete this other folder if I wanted to, and you can work that way. So we've got management. This just allows you to manage users. You can add different users. You can see right now I am the admin user, but you could add another user if you wanted to, and you can put their account credentials here. There's also the system information. So system status, you guys saw that earlier. But you can also click on system logs. If you're having problems with EVE-NG itself, you can look at these different logs, and it can help you when you're trying to troubleshoot what's going on. Like if something is breaking, something's not working the way you would expect, you can always just look in these logs, see if your CPU is being spiked, see if you're having access problems, and you can view everything here and even search through the logs this way. And if you want to stop all of the VMs inside of your lab, you can do that with this single button. Information, well, this tells you about EVE-NG. We already know that. There's a forum that you can click on. There's a GitLab, there's a YouTube channel, and there's even a live chat, but I think that's only available in the pro version. Let's go back home. So let's just create a lab. We'll call it Security Plus. Security. Let's call it, I guess you can't type a plus. Security Plus. Security. Let's call it Cyber. That's fine. And I'll put my name here. Save. All right, so we've got this lab, and we can add an object. So if we add a node, you can see we've got all these different nodes, right? Barracuda, Cisco ASAV. And the first problem people encounter when they get into EVE-NG, they're like, oh, look at all this. I got Cisco IOL. I've got, StealthWatch. I've got Forescout. I've got Juniper, pfSense. Look at all these appliances, right? And then they click one and nothing happens. That's because these images don't ship with EVE-NG. That would be illegal. EVE-NG can't just ship an Aruba ClearPass appliance or a Palo Alto Networks firewall, right? You would have to get that firewall from Palo Alto. If you wanted the Cisco appliances, the iOS, the IOL, whatever it is, this is iOS on Linux, you would have to get it through Cisco, right? So if I go to Cisco CML images, this is what I want. Cisco Modeling Labs. Yeah, so this is Cisco Modeling Labs. It used to be known as Viral, VIRL, but this is the latest and really the approved way of getting the images that you would need. Now, it does have a cost. I think it's $200. Let's see. I believe this is the main. Yeah, so you can buy a license. Welcome to the world of network simulation. So the Cisco Modeling Labs is basically a way that you can use these virtual appliances inside this virtual cloud-based lab. But I think there's a desktop application that you can buy here. So if you go to buy a license, you can see Personal is focused on entry-level network engineers. It gives the engineer enough capacity to design basic networks, right? So you could buy this here. You'll get 20 nodes, and it'll be for your personal use, right? And each of the vendors have their own version of this, right? I think Palo Alto has their own, and it may not be readily accessible on their website. You might have to actually call the vendor. So it's not, that's the one thing I don't like. And it's not EVNG's fault. It's really just the vendors. I wish the vendors would make their appliances more readily available, especially for people who are studying for different certifications, because it's really hard. I mean, how are you going to study for, a certification that requires a Cisco ASAV if you don't have a Cisco ASAV, right? You might not even have the budget for that. It's kind of like one of those things where you don't have a job yet. You're trying to get into cyber, but if you're in cyber, that means you already have a job. But how do you get into cyber? Well, you need the experience. Well, how do you get the experience? Well, that's after you get the job. Well, how do you get the job? You need the experience. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, how does this work? So there are a couple of things you could do here. So, I could show you this. So this virtual PC does ship. Oops. Let me just type virtual. If it's blue like that, that means you can click it immediately. And you can, set the icon here for your PC. You can set a startup configuration if you want one. But if I just click save, you see now I have this PC. I can right click, I can start it, I can stop it, I can reset the configuration, I can even start a packet capture, which is kind of nice, or I could edit it and go back into this setup here. So I can name it PC1 or something like that. Then if I right click and start, it says now it's been started. And I can double click it and you can see it says this site is trying to open SSH Telnet and RLogin client, right? That's because we installed the Windows desktop pack. So now I'm logged into PuTTY. This is actually PuTTY. And let's see, help. What can I do here? Here's some commands I can run on this virtual PC. Yeah, I usually don't use these built-in virtual PCs. Usually I set my own PCs into EVNG, which I'll show you how to do that a little later. Let's see, ping. Is that gonna work? Probably not, because I don't have a network. I just have a single box just sitting here in the open. But we'll talk about all that a little bit later. I just kind of wanted to show you how you can get into your virtual nodes and how you shouldn't panic when you realize you can't really do anything yet, right? Because you don't have these nodes. Now here it's showing the configured nodes. We only have one, but it tells you at a glance how much CPU usage it's using, how much RAM it's using, and if you're connected or not. You can also start, stop, wipe, export, and look at all the interfaces for this node from here, right? You can refresh the topology and you can zoom in like I said before. I can also draw, so I can make a custom shape, right? So I'm going to make a square and I'm going to make it, say, white. Let's make it 10. Save. So this is a good way that you can just kind of draw the network, right? I can say new text. I can say production LAN. You can change the font size, the style, the color, and the background color. Let's make that bold. That's all I really want to cover here. In the next lecture, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the networks. I want to explain how the EVNG networks map to the VMware Workstation networks, right? You've got these bridge networks, you've got cloud management. Like, what does all this mean? You're about to see in the next lecture. And this one is critical, okay? If you don't get anything else, this next lecture will be a life changer because it is one of the most complicated parts of EVNG. And once you understand this, it'll make a lot of sense, especially as you try to build your network topologies. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so let's talk about the networks here. I want to explain something that can be the cause of confusion for many, many people. So let's go ahead and create a node. Let's go for PC, and we'll create 2 of those. And we'll just put PC as the prefix. Icon looks fine, we'll click save. So we've got these 2 PCs. Now what I can do is I can say network, and we'll name this bridge. We'll create one, and the type is bridge. What does this mean? Bridge, actually what this should be called is unmanaged switch. Unmanaged switch, because that's what it is. The network type of bridged is an unmanaged switch. It can pass 802.1q tagged traffic, but it's unmanaged. You can't log into it, you can't manage it. It's just like a dumb switch that you would buy from like Best Buy or Amazon that's really cheap, and it's just for like a home user. But it can connect 2 devices together. Right? So I can drag this over to the bridge, and I'll say, all right, PC1, ETH0, and we'll connect that to the unmanaged switch. And then we'll say PC2, just drag it over, and again, it's ETH0, we connect to the unmanaged switch, right? So now what we can do is we can right click and start these guys up. If I double click on PC1, I can say IP 10.0.0.1/24. Right, I'm just trying to set an IP address. All right, so there we go. And then we can do something similar for this one right here. You can see IP 10.0.0.2/24. It's a 24-bit mask. Okay. So if I do show, you can see here's my IP. Now, if I try to ping 10.0.0.1, it should work, and it is. And this traffic is passing through that unmanaged switch. So that's all an unmanaged switch does, is it connects 2 devices and allows them to connect. Very, very basic. Most of the time, you're not really going to be doing this. What you're probably going to be interested in is when you go to network, you can choose these guys. What are these? Now, this is the part that causes confusion. Let me show you how this maps to VMware Workstation. So I'm going to click the little network icon down here. Settings. Can I get these to be side by side? That would be kind of cool. Kind of have it side by side. So this bridge is the unmanaged switch. Cloud 0 or management is the first network adapter in VMware Workstation, which in this case is NAT. So that means Cloud 0 maps to our live internet source. It's kind of like our WAN connection. Cloud 1 just maps to the next interface, which is network adapter 2, which is set to host only, right? So that one does not have network connectivity. Cloud 2, where does that map? Well, you notice there's no network adapter 3. If we created one, then it would map to the next cloud. Cloud 2. Create a new network adapter, Cloud 3. A new network adapter, Cloud 4, right? And this just keeps going up to Cloud 9. So that's how these map. This is the unmanaged switch, bridge. Cloud 0 is the first network adapter in your virtual machine settings list. And then Cloud 1 is the next network adapter in your VM settings list, so on and so forth. And when you want to get more information about these 2 networks, meaning NAT, which is again Cloud 0, or host only, which is Cloud 1, all you need to do is in VMware Workstation, you can go up to the virtual network editor. You can see the first adapter is bridged. Don't let this confuse you. This says type bridged. This says type bridged. This bridge is the unmanaged switch. This bridged is a bridge network that none of your VMs are connected to. Okay, your VMs are connected to NAT and host only. So don't go by the order in the virtual network adapter. Go by the order in the settings. Just want to make this really clear. Click on the settings for this VM. We can see this order right here is what matters. NAT corresponds to Cloud 0. Host only corresponds to Cloud 1. But if you want to know the network range for NAT, that's when you would go to the virtual network editor. So if you want to look at the Cloud 0 range, edit virtual network editor, you'll see that cloud 0 maps to 192.168.126.0. And this is using DHCP to distribute those IPs. So any computers we put in cloud 0 will get an IP in the 192.168.126.0 subnet. And then VMnet 1, which is cloud 1, based on the mapping we saw earlier, that has a range from 192.168.174.0 to .254, right? So this is the 192.168.174/24 subnet that would correspond to cloud 1. If I added another network, that would be cloud 2, cloud 3, cloud 4, and so on. All right, guys, so I hope that makes sense. In the next lecture, I'm going to show you how you can actually add different nodes into EVE-NG, because right now we don't really have any nodes here, right? So let me show you how you can add the nodes in. All right, you guys, what's up? Vonnie Hudson, back at you. Now we're going to talk about the EVE-NG supported images. This is incontestably one of the most difficult concepts to understand, and it's the thing that really trips up beginners frequently. I know it confused me a lot when I first got into this. So here you can see a list of images, right? These are Cisco images, and these are the recommended images here. You don't have to use these. For example, newer versions also work, but these are the images that have been known to work with EVE-NG. Then you have a list of QEMU images. There's a bunch of them. You'll see Cisco IOS L3, that's the router emulation. Cisco VIOS L2, that's the switch emulation. And there's a bunch of other appliances that you can emulate here. Palo Alto. You can see Windows 10, Windows Server 2022, and Windows 11. I know it's not shown here, but I'm going to show you how you can actually get that to work too, even though it's not officially supported. But this is how it works. When you want to actually get something into your EVE-NG environment, right? Because right now, if I click on node, I don't really have anything I can select. So we need to get the image. So if I go to how to, you'll see there's a list of all these different vendors. So let's scroll down to Windows. Microsoft Windows Workstation. All right, so this is how you create your image. Here it's giving you some examples of the downloaded file names, right? But the point is that the EVE-NG name needs to follow this format: Win-7 or Win-8 or Win-10. The part that follows the number after the dash is arbitrary. If I click on the QEMU image namings, you'll quickly notice that the QEMU images are located here. This is in your EVE-NG appliance. Opt Unit Lab Add-ons QEMU. Now this part is critical. Be sure that your image folder name starts as per table. After the dash, you are adding name and version of your image. This is the part that's arbitrary. For example, here we have an example, right? Firepower 6 dash. That's required if you're using the Firepower image. What comes after the dash, which is in yellow, is arbitrary. ACS dash, required. What comes after that dash is arbitrary. But how do you know what comes before it? We'll talk about that in a second. Second thing I want to talk about is, in addition to the folder names, which is what you see here, the files need to have specific names. And they need to be directly inside the folder you create for the image location. So let's see if I can break this down. This is too confusing. Don't look at that. Let's just go to Windows. So here, if you have a Windows host, not a server, but a Windows host like Windows 10 or Windows 11, although 11 is not officially supported. Again, I'll show you how to set that up. You would type win dash. That's the start of the folder name. And then, if you went to Windows 11, for example, you would do win-11. Then you would name the image itself either HDA or virt IOA. For Win Server, you would do Win Server dash, exactly like that, lowercase, no space. And then if you were doing Windows Server 2022, you would do dash 2022. And again, the file itself would have to be in this format. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Here we are in WinSCP, and we're connected to EVE-NG. On the left, I have a list of folders on my local machine. So I have all these applications, I have firewalls, I have all these images, right? Let's just go to endpoints. Notice my folder name for Windows 11 is Win-11. If I click that, I have an ISO called cd-rom.iso. In EVE-NG, notice I have that ISO, but I also have the hard drive, which is named virtioa.qcal2. So how did I get to this point? Well, all I did was I made sure I was in the right path in EVE-NG, right? So opt unit lab add-ons kemu. There I am right there. Then I just downloaded Windows 11. So if we go to download Windows 11, you can see we have a couple of options. We can download the Windows 11 disk image, the ISO. That's what we want. Multi-edition, download. That's all I did. And then I just picked English and I clicked confirm and the download started. After it finished, I just renamed the download to cd-rom.iso. And then I was able to take this folder and drag the whole thing over into the kemu folder. Then once that's in place, we just need to build a hard drive. So let's go back up to how to. Windows Workstation. You can see here for Windows 7, they're using Win7. That is Win-7, and anything after that 7 is arbitrary. Doesn't matter what that is. But you basically then go to that directory. This is on the command line. We did it all through WinSCP, so you don't have to do it this way, but you could do it this way if you wanted to. You basically cd into the directory you created. And then you would rename, remember I told you you had to rename the ISO? You rename the ISO you download from Microsoft into cd-rom.iso. And then you create that virtual hard disk. So this creates a virtual hard disk that is 30 gigabytes in size. If we log into the Windows 11 directory in EVE-NG, you can see we have that virtual hard drive right there, virtioa.qcal2. And the way we build it is we just run opt kemu, and I'm tab completing, bin kemu -img, and then we're going to create an image for qcal2, virtioa.qcal2. And then afterwards, you put how large you want the drive to be. Now, how did I know to put 65 gigabytes? Because if you go to Google and you type Windows 11 requirements, scroll down past all the cells, brouhaha. Where is it? Minimum device specifications. You can see for storage, it's set to 64 gigabytes. So I just gave it the bare minimum. And then when you actually add the node into EVE-NG, you would set the RAM to 4 gigabytes. So once you do this, and you end up building the virtual hard drive, which takes really fast, you'll end up with a folder structure that looks like this. Then the next step is to launch into EVE-NG. That is the GUI. And you could say right click, add a new object node, Windows. And now you can select Windows 11. So we're just going to add one Windows 11 box. We'll call it PC1. Now we can keep this desktop image, or we can change it. In the next lecture, I'll show you how you can add different icons to customize EVE-NG a little bit better. But you've got that icon there. You can change the RAM, but 4 gigabytes is enough. Some people have had better success by changing the NIC to VirtIO Net PCI. I've had no problems with E1000, but if you do run into networking issues or the connection seems flaky, you can use the VirtIO-Net-PCI. And the console's VNC, you could change it to RDP if you wanted to RDP into the box instead. So actually, I'll do that. So we will click Save. And now we've got our Windows 11 box here, right? Let's zoom in a little bit. All right. So that's pretty much how you add an image. The main thing you want to keep in mind is that each of these has its own settings, right? So if I want to go to Windows Server, I need to look at the settings for this. You can see that ISO comes down like this with this .iso file name. You can watch the video, or you can just make sure that you have a directory that looks like this, right? Opt unit lab add-ons KMU win server dash. So I would go to WinSCP and make sure I have it. Here it is on my local machine, win server dash, and you can see I have it named as CD-ROM. So really all I need to do is copy this over, right? So I can just drag this guy, drag him over here. And that's going to copy over the Windows Server 2022. And then once that copy finishes, we already did this step, right? We already renamed it. We would run this command to create the hard drive. And here it's creating a hard drive for 60 gigabytes. We run this inside of the EVE-NG command line interface, right? Inside of our VMware Workstation window. And then you just follow the rest of these instructions. Really, it's just following through the documentation here. And there's even pictures. It's really straightforward. Then you can actually remove that cd-rom.iso to clear up space once you're done. And everything works out well. Now, there is one little trick to when you're actually setting up Windows, and that's this piece right here. You don't have to read this right now. I'm going to show you when we set up Windows 11. It's similar to Windows 10 and Windows Server 2022. There's a little gotcha. And actually, Windows 11 has a couple of gotchas. So let's just dig into Windows 11 next. So we'll set it up completely in the next lecture, and then we'll set up the icons, and I'll show you guys how to customize the VM icons. All right. See you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so let's go ahead and go through with this setup. So here we are in Ultra VNC, and now we're ready to install. So we're going to click Next, Install Now. Now this is Windows 11, so there are a few caveats, and I'm going to walk you through them. Don't worry. If you just try to next, finish your way through this installer, it will fail. That's because Windows 11 is looking for a trusted platform module, which is not emulated in EVE-NG. And there are a few other things that are required in order to get this to work. Let's move this to the side over here. All right, so the product key. If you have a valid product key, by all means put it in. If not, you can use Windows in sort of an evaluation mode, right? So I'm going to click I don't have a product key. And we're going to pick Windows 11 Pro. There's other options, but I'm just going for Pro. Mainly because this is the version that will allow us to join a domain. Now this is the part I want to show you. This PC can't run Windows 11. Your PC doesn't meet the minimum system requirements, right? So you might say, well, of course it does. What do I do? This trips most people up. Now, it does meet the requirements, but there are a few things we need to change. And it's kind of a secret hotkey combination to get here. What you want to do is you want to press Shift F10. Now, if you have a laptop with an FN key, that is a key that shares a F function with some other function, you're going to want to press Shift F10. There you go. You've got the command prompt. All right. So in here, we're going to run regedit. And we're going down to computer, H key local machine, system, setup. And we need to make a new key here. So I'm going to right click setup, going to say new key. And I'm going to name it lab config, just like that. Notice the camel case. Then with a lab config selected, I'm going to right click new 32-bit D word, and I'm going to name it exactly like this. Bypass TPM check. Then I'm going to press enter and change the value from 0 to 1, enter. That will bypass the check for the trusted platform module. Okay, now there's a few others we need to add. New 32-bit D word, bypass RAM check. That way we can bypass the RAM requirement check. Although we meet those requirements here, which this is something nice just to have in place so that you can get everything to work. Then finally, new 32-bit D word, bypass secure boot check. Press enter again, 1. Now everything is set to 1. Bypass TPM check, bypass RAM check, bypass secure boot check, all set to 1. Okay. You see that, the hexadecimal base. All right, so now we can close this out. We can exit the command prompt. We go back, and then we click next again and watch the magic happen. That was not the magic I was talking about. If it doesn't happen, it means you probably typoed something. All right, so the reason it's doing this is because we don't have everything set up right? So if I click stop, I think I'm missing a CPU. Edit. Yeah, I think we need to set this to 2 CPUs. Save. Right click, start. Let's try it now. Yeah, 1 gigahertz or faster with 2 or more cores. So we only had 1 core. We just set it to 2. So now this should work. See guys, everything needs to be exact when you're setting up these labs. One mistake can cause things to break, but don't worry, we're going to work our way through it. All right, we're back here. Click next, install. Come on guys, we can do it this time, I know it. And I like to do things multiple times, right? I want you to see repetition. I want you to see how I do this. The more you see it, the easier it will be for you when you do this on your own. You know, it's one thing to watch these videos. It's another to type the commands along with me. And the more you watch this, the easier and more intuitive it will be for you. All right, so we'll say, I don't have a product key. Windows 11 Pro, next. All right, FN, Shift, F10, regedit. HQ local machine, system, setup, right click, new, key, lab config. Right click, new, 32-bit DWORD, bypass, TPM check, 1. Bypass, RAM check, 1, right? And then new DWORD, 32-bit, bypass, secure boot check, enter, 1. Close, exit. All right, we're gonna go back and then click next, and this should do it. Guys, you think we did it right? I think we did. Yeah, and we did. The issue was the cores. We didn't have that set up correctly. So when you get to this screen, upgrade or custom, you want custom. And you're not gonna see anything, right? Where are the drives? Oh no, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, fortunately, if you go back here in documentation, it tells us that this is an issue. That's number 9 where it says important. That's why you need to read these instructions. But I'll spare you the reading and I'll just show you what you need to do. I just wanted to give you the reference. What we do here is we click load driver, we go to browse, and we go to the B drive, the floppy B drive. Yes, I know that is bizarre. Don't ask me why this is the case. Go to storage, and then you go to Windows 2008. You go to this Windows R2 directory, and then you click AMD 64. When you do that, you'll see this Red Hat driver that's available, and you just click next. I know it's kind of bizarre, but this is what you need to do in order to get Windows 11 to work. And that's really the only step. That's the last kind of like strange step. Let's click next. And we're off to the races, guys. Now, when we try to set up Windows 11, it's going to run into a little bit of an issue because Windows 11 likes to be connected to the internet. We're not connected to the internet. We don't have a router yet. Man, that rhymed. Okay, but that's okay. We're just going to set it up as best we can without the internet connection, and then we'll proceed from there, all right? So the next lecture, what we're gonna do though, before we get too deep, is I want to install the custom icon set so that I can truly show you some of the fun we can have with the GUI, all right? So I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Bye. All right, this next piece is kind of a bonus, not really, but it's not something that you absolutely need to do. This isn't mandatory by any means, but it will help your lab environment to be a little more enjoyable to use. It can make it more beautiful and give you points when you're showing off to your manager or coworkers or your friends, right? So what we want to do is we want to get these icons. You want to go to this website right here, the Network Berg, ECCEman Affinity, even G symbols. I love these. All we're going to do is download all these icons, and I'm going to show you what they look like in a moment. I'm just going to click download zip. All right, so we're going to open the file. And we will say extract. And we'll just put it in the EVNG folder. All right, so here are our icons. I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to grab all of them. Control A, Control X to cut them. Let's go up a few. And I'm just going to drop them in this root directory. This is on my physical host machine. Then I'm going to delete this folder. All right, so now we've got all these icons. How do we get this into EVNG? Glad you asked. So we can go to WinSCP. And you can see these icons, right? I'm just going to select all of them from my local machine. And we're going to drag them into opt unit lab HTML. And then we need images, and you can already see there's a glorious icons folder that already has some. This is where we're going to put our custom icons. So let's drag these guys over. Nice. Now when we go to EVNG, new node, let's see if I did like Windows. Got these icons here, right? We already had a bunch of icons, but now we've got these extra ultra modern icons. Let me show you what it looks like in a bigger view. So here you can see we've got all these different options, right? We've got the server icon, we've got, looks like a malware, antivirus icon, printers, and this just makes it, I don't know, in my opinion, it makes it a little more fun. So have fun with these icons now that we have them imported. There's your firewall. Maybe this could be a Kali Linux, the attacker machine or something like that. Or maybe you could make that the attacker. But have fun with these icons and, you know, experiment and have fun because they're all here. Let's see if I wanted to add this node. There you go. So it's up to you. You might like the old school icon or you might like the new one, but it just gives you more options when you're configuring everything, okay? So what we'll do with that little detour in our setup, we'll go back to the Windows 11 setup and we'll finish that process. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so here we are. You can see we changed the icon for the PC to our new flat icons. And I'm just going to go through the setup wizard. So I'll select my country and click yes. All right, the US, that's the right layout. Nope, I don't want to add a second keyboard. And it's not going to find a Wi-Fi connection because we're not connected to anything, right? This is just a virtual machine with no network connectivity yet. So I will say, I don't have internet. And we'll just continue with the limited setup. All right, so I'm going to put my name. And I'll just put a password. We've got to do the security question stuff. Uncheck all this privacy stuff. All right, so it looks like we're off to the races here. Nice. So we'll let the setup process march forward and we'll come back when it's done. And here we are, lovely Windows 11. So it is completely set up. Of course, again, we don't have network connectivity because we didn't set that part up yet. But we have our VM running inside of EVNG, inside the Ultra VNC console. And in Ultra VNC, you could send Control-Alt-Delete by clicking this. That'll send Control-Alt-Delete to the host. Otherwise, when you press Control-Alt-Delete, it'll lock your physical machine. You can full screen it, You can show connection options. You can refresh the screen. You can send start, which is control escape, and a few other things. So it's really nice. Click cancel here. And the setup process for Windows 10 is even easier. So I'm going to close the window. Notice the PC is still running. What we can do now is go into our WinSCP, and you can see we've got a Windows 10 folder with a CD-ROM. So again, I just went to Microsoft's website and downloaded Windows 10. Windows 10 download TechNet. I think that's how you can get it. Yeah, so you click Windows 10 Enterprise. And you see you can get a 90-day evaluation. So we select the ISO, click continue. Continue. All right, so we will pick the 64-bit version and English. And this will kick off the download. And what I did was I renamed this file to cd-rom.iso after the download finished. This download right here. And then all you need to do is grab this folder. See, it's Win-10. The Win- is the most important part. And then you drag that in to the opt unit lab add-ons KEMU folder. And you can see I've got it there. Then to create this hard drive, I needed to know the system requirements for Windows 10. You can see here, we can get by with one processor, one core, and then looks like 20 gigabytes of hard drive space will be enough. But we can go for 32. So let me show you how I do this. I'm going to remove the one I created previously. And then I'll just create 32 gigabytes of storage like so. And if you needed a refresher on how to do that, you can go here to the how-to section. Microsoft Windows, scroll down, create a new virtual hard disk named virtioa.qcal2. And here you see we're creating the 30 gigabyte hard drive. So let's do it. Now we've got the hard drive there. So now we can pivot back into EvenG and create this VM. Right click, add Windows, change it to 10, name it PC2, change the icon. That all looks good. Actually, we can get it by with 2048. Everything looks good. Let's start this guy up. Square should turn to a play button soon. Good, now we know it's on. You see it's outlined in blue, so we know it's running. You can double click it to get in there and configure it. All right, so here we go. Let's click next. Install. It took me a while to get to this point. The screen was black for about 5 minutes. Don't let that freak you out. Just keep pressing forward. Eventually it should get to this screen. Oh yes, so let's go ahead and install this guy. I accept. Custom. Load driver. Browse. Scroll down to the B drive. Storage. And keep going. All right, so now we're going to install it. We'll select the drive that's unallocated. This is our virtual disk. And we can click next. Awesome, awesome. All right, so we will let this install proceed forward and then we'll come back when it's done. All right, guys, so we finally got to this section. Let's go ahead and pick our region. You guys know the drill, right? All right, keyboard layout. I'm in the US, so that's what I'm going with. Second keyboard, I'll skip that. I'm not sure why the window dimmed, as if it's going to sleep. And as we did for Windows 11, we're going to say we don't have the internet right now. Having some issues clicking for some reason. I'm not sure why I can't click. Refresh screen. See if that does it. There we go. That was weird. All right, so we're going to continue with limited setup. So let's create our admin account. Having problems clicking in this window. I'm going to close this. Get back into it. I'll just use the keys for now. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just using the keys, the down arrow and tab, and enter. My mouse isn't working, so I'm just going to tab through here, tab space, tab space. That's how I'm disabling this stuff. And we'll say accept. Then it's going to ask us about Cortana, and we can, of course, opt out of that as well. Not now. Not ever. Go away, Cortana. Leave me alone. I'm working on my lab. All right, so things are getting kicked off, and we'll come back once Windows is set up. Yes, we made it. We've got Windows 10 set up. And my mouse is still acting weird, so I am going to actually shut down and then restart everything. Close the connection. I'm going to restart both these guys. One thing I did want to show you before we move on to the next VM setup. If you have your VMs all messed up like this and you want to keep it neat and you're OCD like me, you can select both of them. First of all, you can start both of them at the same time. You can stop them at the same time. But you can also vertically align. Ooh, look at that. Or you could, if you wanted to, horizontally align. So that's pretty cool. And because I'm OCD, I need to put a 1 in front of this PC. And then vertically align it. And then start both of them. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture. In the next one, we will continue building out our endpoints. See you in a little bit. Peace. All right, you guys. So now it's time to add Windows Server 2022 or 2019 or 2016, whatever you want. We can add a Windows Server into the EVE-NG environment. So if we want to create an Active Directory environment, if we want to practice a penetration test, if we want to push down group policies, if we want to study for a Microsoft certification, we could do all of that. All right, so what we're going to do is go to EVE-NG's website and click on documentation. Then we'll scroll down to how to, and we'll go down to the Windows Server. MS Windows Server. So here are the file names. What we need to do here is obviously we need to grab Windows Server first. So you can go to the Microsoft Eval Center and you want to click Windows Server 2022. So when you get here, you just go ahead and say download the ISO, click continue, fill out the information, click continue. And once you're done with that, you'll get a file, but it won't be called cd-rom.iso. It'll have some long name .iso. What I did is renamed the ISO I downloaded into cd-rom.iso per the documentation, and I put it in a folder called WinServer. That's all one word, all lowercase, dash, and then 2022. This is what the documentation specifies. Here, if you wanted Windows Server 2012 R2, you would just do dash 2012 R2, okay? So then you see here, they renamed the ISO to cd-rom.iso, and then you just create the space. That is the virtual disk for it. We add the node, install it, and we're good to go, guys. So it's really that straightforward. And of course, don't forget to remove the ISO after you're done. I always forget to do that, but it can clear up some space in your VM. So let's do it. Here I've got my WinServer-22 directory. I put it in opt unit lab add-ons Kemu. You can see here, we've got it. Now I'm just going to cd into that directory. And I'm going to run this command to create our hard drive. Now, how much space do we need? Here, if we ran this, it would give us 32 gigabytes. See, 2 spaces between there. How much space does Windows Server 2022 need? Windows Server 2022 requirements. Okay, processor. Looks like we can get away with 1 core. RAM 512 or 2 gigabytes. So we'll probably use 2 gigabytes because we want the desktop experience. So we have a GUI. And then minimum of 32 gigabytes for storage. All right. So we've got 32 gigabytes here. Let's just create it. And now we've got our virtual drive. Let's go back into EVE-NG. And we'll say right click, add new object, node, Windows, Windows Server 2022. All right, we'll call it DC for domain controller. How about that? Let's see if we can get a nice server icon. That one looks nice. RAM, we'll do 2048. Everything else looks good here. All right. Let's start this guy up. DC is started. Let's install it. Are you guys getting the hang of this? Are you starting to see how easy EVE-NG really is? It's not that hard, right? I mean, I'm just doing the same thing over and over, rinse and repeat. Let's drag these guys, move them over here. All right, so now we're going to click through the installation, click next, install now. All right, so we're going to do the standard evaluation with the desktop experience. In a production environment, you probably want the core edition, that is the non-GUI. That way you shrink the attack surface, you shrink the number of patches that need to be applied. It just hardens the box and makes it more tough. It fortifies the system, right? But we're in a lab, we're trying to learn, we're trying to break things, we're trying to have fun, we're trying to boost our skills and our confidence levels. So we're going to install the desktop experience. All right, I'll accept the license. And then we will add our drive by going to load driver, browse. And then we will get it from storage. AMD 64. Okay, now we've got our unallocated space. Let's go ahead and install it. So we've kicked off the installer. We'll let it run and we'll come back when it's done. I'll see you guys in a little bit. So we're getting an error message here. Operating system wasn't found. I bet we need more storage for the drive. So let's get in here and change this to 64 gigabytes. $64 gigs, here we come. All right, so it's back. And let's rerun the install. All right, so that is what I wanted to see, this beautiful Microsoft logo. So if you have more storage, use it. That's the moral of the story. All right, so we will let this continue to set up and we'll come back when we're done. All right, you guys, so now we can configure the admin password. This will be the most powerful account on the domain. All right, let's click finish. Yes. All right, we've got it. All right, so press Control-Alt-Delete to unlock. We're going to click the Control-Alt-Delete button. And then log in with the password we created. Very nice. Okay. So there you go, guys. And from here, we can just set up a domain controller if we wanted to. Manage, add roles and features. And it's still doing some stuff here. But we're not going to do that. Okay, I just wanted to show you how you can set up this server in your environment. In the next lecture, what we're going to do is set up Kali Linux, okay, so we can get the attacker machine established, all right? I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, you guys, so now we're going to add Kali Linux into EVE-NG. This is an offensive, really a penetration testing distribution of Linux that's used for red team operations, penetration testing, security assessments. So if we click on download, we can go down to bare metal. You don't want to get virtual machine. I know that's counterintuitive, but you actually want to go to bare metal to get the ISO. And here you can see the installer. So we can kick this off and let it download. Now when it finishes, what you'll find is an ISO. And again, I just renamed that ISO into cd-rom.iso. And I put it in a local folder called linux-kali-2022. Then in my opt unit lab add-ons KMU folder, we can drag it over. So let's do it. All right, so this is copying. We'll come back when it's done. All right, the copy finished, and you can see we've got the CD-ROM in the opt unit lab add-ons KMU folder. Now what we need to do is look at the KMU image namings. If we do Control F Linux, you can see the folder just has to have the name Linux dash, which is what we have, Linux-Kali-2022. And then we just need to name the hard drive vert IOA. Now, how big does Kali Linux need for a hard drive? "20 gigabytes of space, 2 gigabytes of RAM." Okay, and it looks like just one core. So last time we ran into an issue where we didn't have enough space, so I'll just put it at 32 gigabytes instead of 20. Sometimes if you give it just enough storage, it's still insufficient. So hopefully this will fix that problem. All right, good, we've got it. Control-Alt to exit the VM. Let's go into our EVE topology and let's see if we can add Kali. Type Linux. It's a good sign that it's showing up here, and there's Kali. And let's give it an evil icon. There we go, the skull. Of course, you need a skull for a hacker, right? Let's see. Everything else looks good. Right click, start. Kali started, you see it's blue. Let's try to interact with it. All right, we'll do the graphical install. Keyboard is not working in Ultra VNC. So let's see if we can get it to work a different way. I'm going to stop Kali, go to edit, and change the console from VNC to RDP. Start it up, double click it. See, something's being blocked. All right, yes, I want to allow. Open. Okay, errors abound. All right, what are we going to do here? Let's see. Let's reboot. Control Alt, Node, Linux. Let's do this, guys. We can do it. Well, something's happening. I'm not sure what. All right, so it looks like a reboot did it, and it was hanging because it was trying to connect to the network, which it can't because we don't have that set up yet. So we'll just say do not configure the network at this time. Hostname Kali, that works. And we'll put in our name for the user. Let's set the password. This is one I'm making up to log in to the box. Time zone looks good. And we'll use the guided partition setup. There's our disk. And we'll do the recommended all files in one partition. All right, let's finish partitioning. You can see we have two, a primary and a logical. And the primary is 32 gigabytes. Let's write the changes to the disks. So we'll click yes. All right, so it's going. We'll come back when it's done. All right, and we'll keep the defaults for the desktop environment. All right, so we got to the grub bootloader. Let's go ahead and install that to our primary drive. And we'll install it on dev SDA, our first storage device. All right, the installation is complete. Let's go ahead and click continue to reboot. All right, so let's log in with Kali. Oh, that's right, we need to use the account we created. And of course, there's no network. We know that. We're going to get into the Cisco routers and switches in the next lecture, so don't worry. You're going to get network connectivity finally. All right, so there we go, guys. We've got Kali Linux inside of EVE-NG with all these attack tools. Very, very cool. All right, guys, so in the next lecture, we'll get into our Cisco routers and switches. All right, I'll show you guys how you can set that up. And this is perfect when you're studying for the CCNA, CCNP, Security Plus, Network Plus. All these certifications, you can build a lab and truly practice and hone your skills, all right? So I can't wait. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, you guys, so now it is time to learn how you can set up Cisco routers and switches in EVE-NG. Now, this is perfect when you're studying for the CCNA or the CCNP or any Cisco certification, or you just want to build a lab that is realistic, that matches a production environment. Because let's face it, production environments have switches and routers, right? And if you want to configure VLANs or a router on a stick or port security or dynamic ARP inspection, any of these security controls, DHCP snooping, all these things, you need routers and switches. And that's why I love this part. Now, the big thing here is you need to get those routers and switches. And how do you get them? Well, if you go to EVNG's website, they'll take you to a link, right? And here it says, viral account holders can download images from their viral download location. You must have a valid Cisco account, right? Now, the thing is, if you have a viral account, you could have gone to this link and downloaded the images from Cisco legitimately. Like you would basically create a valid Cisco account, you'd log in and you'd buy the license, which I think it was like $200. Now, if you click the link, it just returns an error message. I don't know when they're going to fix this. And I think that's partly because Cisco changed their licensing from viral to Cisco Modeling Labs, right? So if we go to Google, Cisco Modeling Labs, right? So here's the Modeling Labs. And if you click on licensing, I believe that's where we want to be. Single user, yes. So this is $200. So I think this is the new way to get the images that you want for EVNG. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think this is where you would go. If you click on download at a glance, it'll probably tell you more about the offering. So definitely, read through this, see what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, and just read through this, become conversant with what your options are. But once you obtain the images from Cisco, then what you can do is set this up. So the way to do it is kind of convoluted, I guess you could say, or not really convoluted. You just have to really pay attention. So let me show you something. So here we are in my EVNG folder, and you can see I've got routers, and then I have the path to a router name. Now this is one that you can pull from viral. Notice that the actual image itself is a virtioa.qcow2. And for the switches, there's also a similar format that's important. So if I go to the switches, you'll see the file name here, but this part, viosl2. There's no dash between these two, and it's all lowercase. So it's viosl2 and then a dash. And then inside of here, we have our virtioa.qcow2. So let me explain what this is. Let's say you had this file that you downloaded from viral. What you would do is make that file look like this. You might say, Vonnie, it looks exactly the same. It's not. Notice this one has .vmdk in the name, and this one doesn't. See, there's little nuances like that that can break everything. And then you might look at the switch, right? So the switch that you download is vios_l2- adventerprise K9, right? You look at this one, you're like, oh, it's the same. But it isn't. This one has an underscore separating Vios and L2. This one does not. So those little nuances are things you really need to pay attention to. Once you get that down, you create the folder you want, right? So here you can see the router folders created, and the directory is in the opt unit lab add-ons KMU and then the name of the actual image. So here you can see I'm in KMU and I have the name of the image right here, right? Opt unit lab add-ons KMU vios-adventerprise K9 and then the full name of the image with the .vmdk in the name. Then I upload the downloaded image to this folder, right? So we're changing into that directory. You can see here's that folder, and we have a file in here. How did I get that file? Well, first you have to do a couple things. The file came like this, okay? This was what the file name looked like. vmdk.spa.156-1-t for this particular example. You need to rename that file by adding the .vmdk extension at the end. Basically, you're removing the .vmdk from the middle and moving it to the end of the file. Then you're using this KMU image utility to convert the format of VMDK to the output of a QCOW2. And then we pass in the file we want to convert, which is this .vmdk file, and then the resulting output file, which is our QCOW2. So all that has been done, and that is how I got to this point. So you see there's a lot of steps, right? We did the same thing for this one. That's how we got these files. Just converted the image using the steps here. Once you do that, and there's another option you can try if that other one doesn't work, you can then delete the raw.vmdk file. You then run this command right here. You literally can just copy and paste it in, or you can just type opt unit lab wrappers unl_wrapper -a fix permissions. Once you run that, it will fix the permissions and it will make it available inside of EVNG. Now, if the file is already in a QCOW2 format, meaning it's not the VMDK, so this one is a VMDK file, even though it doesn't have the .vmdk extension here. The one you actually download, it has .t, but it's really a .vmdk file. If you already get the file in a QCOW2 format, there's less work to do. So this is for the switches. You basically download it from Viral, from Cisco, and then you make the directory that has a name like this, okay? VIOSL2- and then the name of your switch software. Here you can see mine right here, right? The switch software I'm using is this particular version, but it always starts with VIOSL2-. Then what you do, you can use WinSCP to copy the image you downloaded from Viral from Cisco, and you rename it to this format, virtioa.qcow2. Then you fix the permissions, and then you've got your switch. So that's a lot of steps. You might think, man, that's so annoying. It's so many places to fail, so many places to make a mistake. Yes, it is. But if you follow these directions to the T, you will be rewarded. And what you're rewarded with is this. So we're logged into EVNG right now. And when you set this up correctly, you can actually right click. Let's do this, right? I can say node, Cisco. All these are gray except these two guys, right? I've got my router and my switch. So I can click router. I can say, all right, what do I want to name it? I want to name it R1. The router PNG, let's change that to, let's see, router blue. And 4 Ethernets are fine, 1 CPU, 1 gig of RAM, that's okay. And I can click save. Now I've got a Cisco router here, right? I can also right click, add new object, which is a node. I can just type iOS if I want to get there quicker. I can click switch, and we're going to add one of these. We'll name it switch 1, change the icon. And if you want to make this a layer 3 switch, you could do that by just making the icon reflect that. Right, so here's a regular switch, here's a multi-layer switch if you wanted to change the way it appears here, but I'll make it look like a multi-layer switch because it looks really cool. And you can keep all the default settings. It'll have 8 gigabit Ethernet ports, and then we click save. And we've got our switch, guys, just like that, right? So now, I mean, if I wanted to, I could basically say, all right, I want to add a network, and I want this to be called the internet. Take a quick review of our networking lecture if you want to learn how EVNG connects to VMware Workstation networks. But we can change this from bridged to management cloud 0, and that will connect out via NAT. That is via the VMware Workstation NAT connection to the internet, right? So now I can say, all right, the internet, I'm just going to drag and connect it to which interface? Gig 00 on router 1, right? I click save. Then I can say, all right, switch 1 is connecting to the router. Switch 1 will connect, let's see, switch 1's gig 01 interface to router 1's gig 01 interface, right? Click save. And then I can select everything, horizontal align. You can add a shape, background color, I don't really like that background color, so I can edit it. Let's see. Right. And then, of course, you could connect these devices to the switch, right? I mean, I could connect PC1 to the switch. So I'm just trying to show you guys, give you guys some ideas on what you can do here. So I'll connect it to gig 2. I can even connect the attacker to the switch. Gig 3. You could put these guys at different VLANs. I mean, you could do a bunch of different things. So like, I'm not going to show you how to do all that configuration here, but I can start these guys up. Then I double click into the router, open, and we'll get the router, right? I mean, it's basically just like that. Got to press enter a few times because the iOS image has to decompress just like it would on a real Cisco router, right? So while that loads, let's take a look at the switch. Looks like I accidentally dragged these things around. How did I do that? Let's go back here. All right, it's booting, it's making progress. We are getting there, guys. We're going to get to user mode. Yeah, I can see the switch back here. Booting up you can see all the interfaces are being set. I guess I could start at the PC too. Come on, you guys. I'm just eager to get into this switch, this router. Give me a prompt. All right, we got the switch up. Okay, so let's minimize the router for now. And we're in user mode, right? So we can say EN to go into privilege mode, right? We can do show IP int brief to show, all the interfaces on the switch. We could do like a show MAC address table to see the content addressable memory table. Tab complete. There we go. And already we have some activity because we turned on our hosts back here. So they're already communicating through the switch, which is really, really cool. So we can configure trunk ports. I mean, we can do so many things. Show VLAN, right? We can create VLANs. That's all Cisco, CCNA stuff. The point here, guys, is I'm showing you what you can do with your EVE-NG configuration, right? I'm just giving you a foretaste of what's to come. Once you set these Cisco routers and switches in here, and you can set up VLANs, you can set up, spanning tree, you can set up different routing protocols like OSPF, and this is really bothering me, this background, I just don't like it. You can set up all these different things, and you have a true lab environment, right? So I hope you found this lecture helpful. If you did, please let me know. Give me a shout. Give me a top rating. 5 stars is definitely preferred. And get your friends in this course. Let's get everybody here so that we can continue to build, all right? So in the next lecture, what we're going to do is go into how we can set up the Palo Alto Networks firewall and what that looks like inside of our EVE-NG topology. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so let's talk about getting Palo Alto Networks firewall. It could be any firewall though, right? I mean, I'm just giving you an example of some of these how-tos. Really, this process works for almost any supported appliance or device. You can see those in the how-to section to the left. But if we scroll down here, we can scroll down to Palo Alto. We click that, and we get this page here. Now, it shows some older images. Nobody's using, hopefully, 8.0 anymore. But this works for the newer images as well, like 10.0 and newer. So the setup is pretty much the same. You basically want to first contact Palo Alto and receive a VM from them. So you might need to reach out to their sales team, reach out to a contact and ask them for a VM. They're usually pretty good at getting it to you. It may take a couple of weeks, but eventually, more than likely, you'll actually receive one. That's at least how it's worked in my experience. So once you receive the OVA, is how they'll give it to you. You can then use the QEMU IMG utility to convert the VMDK in the OVA to a QCOW format, and specifically vert ioa.qcow2. Then you create a folder in the opt unit lab add-ons QEMU, and you name it Palo Alto, just like that with a dash, no space, all lowercase. And if you have Palo Alto version 10.0.1 or 11 or whatever it is, you can just do Palo Alto dash and then 10, right? Or Palo Alto dash and then 11. Then you move that QCOW2 disk that you created in the step 1.2 into the folder that you just created, opt unit lab add-ons QEMU Palo Alto dash. And then you just use that UNL wrapper utility to fix the permissions, and you can log into your Palo Alto Networks firewall. Now, if you already have it as a QCOW2 image and it's not a VMDK, the process is similar. You want to create that folder, opt unit lab add-ons QEMU Palo Alto dash, and then whatever version number you have. Go into that folder, rename the QCOW2 file to a vert ioa.qcow2, run the fixed permissions, and boot it up and log in as an admin, right? So it's really that straightforward. The lengthiest process is obtaining the OVA. And again, to do that, you would reach out to Palo Alto Networks. So here's how we do it. Once you get the OVA, we can go here and I can show you what it looks like. So here you can see I have Palo Alto. Let's see if I go into firewalls. Yeah, so I've got Palo Alto 10.0.1. And mine is already converted to the .qcal2 format. So all I did was I just dragged the folder over. So it's in the opt unit lab add-ons QEMU Palo Alto -10.0.1, and it's got my virt ioa.qcal2. I literally just went through the instructions on the EVE-NG website. I didn't really do any magic. The only thing I did was I used step 2 because I was deploying it as a qcal2 image. So I just followed the instructions here. Once you do that, we can go into our topology and we can start building. So let's go, and I'm going to say node. Let's add a new node, Palo Alto. There we go. All right, looking good. I'll name it Palo Alto, and I'll make it look like a firewall. That looks good. All right, everything else, that looks fine to me. It's got 4 Ethernets. If you wanted more ports, you can just put 8, right? If you wanted 8, but I'll leave it at 4. And we'll just click save. For some reason, it named it Node 7. Don't know why. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't change it here. Yeah, Palo Alto. No, it still says Node 7. Maybe you can't have a space. There we go. No spaces allowed. All right. So let's go ahead and create this, connect this guy to the internet, so we can manage him. We'll use the management interface on the Palo Alto to connect out. Start him up. And let's jump in. So the only caveat with Palo Alto, it usually works pretty well. The only caveat is that the boot process takes a while. And when you get to the actual prompt where you can log in with admin, it's not really going to be admin. You have to wait like another 5 or even 10 minutes after you get to that boot prompt before you can log in with the default credentials. So don't freak out when the default credentials don't work. The first time you boot, don't start Googling around what's the default password for Palo Alto. You just have to really wait, even after you see the prompt to log in, like an extra 5 to 10 minutes. So after a few minutes, you'll get to this point and you might think, all right, I'm going to press admin. Login incorrect. Then it's like PA HDF login. What's that, right? And you're just like, it's not working. What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. You just need to wait. All right, so we'll come back once everything is ready. So after about 10 minutes, I've got an IP address. How did I get that IP? Because the Palo Alto is connected to the internet, right? You can see I'm connected to the internet through the management interface. I mean, you wouldn't in a production environment have the management interface of your firewall connected to the internet. But in our lab, we do. So the cool thing about this is now I can go here, right? I can go to 192.168.126.131 and manage the device, right? So I can say advanced, continue. Okay, I see it loading in the background. Admin. It's probably still coming up. That's why it's, yeah. So now I've got this. All right. So enter old password, admin. When it says enter a new password, you literally have to enter a new password. If you don't do that, you'll get into this weird loop where it keeps asking you to enter a new password and you won't really know why. Now that we've logged into the CLI, we can log here and get into the GUI, right? Admin. Try the new password we created. All right, creating administrative session. And here you can see we did finally get into the CLI. All right, guys, so here we go. Here we are, we've got our firewall, right? I mean, isn't this awesome? So we could go in here, change telemetry settings. So I'll disable the telemetry. Let's see. All right. So we can go to monitor. We can look at the different logs. Of course, nothing's going to be generated right now because, well, we don't have any traffic traversing the firewall. We don't have any policies set up. We don't have any zones configured, but you have the infrastructure in place to do that. Right, we've got this firewall. We could put it, in between the switch and the router. We could create a DMZ off the firewall and create a vulnerable web app. That's what we'll do in the next lecture. Is I'll show you how you can install like a vulnerable web app if you wanted to put it in your DMZ and then add that to EVE-NG. All right. So guys, you're making excellent progress. I hope you're starting to see what you can do in EVE-NG. And in the next lecture, we'll jump into our vulnerable web app setup. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. So hopefully now you're starting to get the hang of how we add these images into EVE-NG, right? It's really a dance of jumping into, WinSCP, making sure that the folder's in the right format, dragging it into the right folder, and then following the documentation through step by step. So the next thing I want to do is show you how you can add a vulnerable web app into your environment. Maybe you want, a vulnerable web app sitting in a DMZ here, and you want your Kali box. Maybe you want this Kali box to be on the outside in the internet, and you want to try to, let's delete that link there. So let's add this vulnerable app into our environment. So Juice Shop is the most modern and sophisticated and secure web application. And we can set this up. So what we probably want to do is, let's see, set up, let's go down to from sources. So we probably want to follow these steps here, and we can install it on an Ubuntu instance. So what we'll do, of course, so here we are on Ubuntu's website. If you just go to download and then you click Ubuntu desktop, we can get the latest copy. And essentially it's going to download the ISO, and it's going to download. And then once it finishes, we're just going to rename it cd-rom.iso. Then we drag this entire folder into the kmove folder. You can see it's here, and we have our CD-ROM. Then back inside of our VM, we just make sure that we run the command to create our hard drive. So here you can see I created a 32 gigabyte hard drive, right? 32 gigs. And I'm just using kemu-image create format qcow2. And I'm naming the file vert.ioa.qcow2, right? So once we have that set up, we can go back to our topology. We can say it's Linux, Ubuntu 22, that's what we want. We'll name it Juice, and we'll change the icon appropriately. All right, everything else looks good. Probably doesn't need that much RAM. 2 gigs is probably good enough. And we'll say save. Now, of course, make sure you don't forget to fix the permissions. So we can say cd linux ubuntu 22. And we can run the fix permissions command. If you don't do this, when you boot the VM after it installs, it won't actually get into the GUI. It'll just be a black screen. How do I know? I know from experience. All right, so we got the permissions fixed, and now we can go through the install. All right, so we're ready to rock. I'm going to choose English as my language, and I'm just going to click Install Ubuntu. All right, so I've got my keyboard layout. Click Continue. We don't need all this stuff. I'll just do a minimal installation. We don't really need anything else, right? This is just going to be our vulnerable web app. It should have a small footprint. Okay, so we'll erase the disk. That is the virtual disk, not the disk of your host machine, but the guest VM inside of EVE-NG, that disk. So we'll click Install, and then we'll erase that disk to install Ubuntu. All right, write changes to disk. If you continue, the changes listed below will be written to the disks. So this is our virtual disk. That is what we want, so we'll click Continue. And I'll keep the time zone. Everything looks good. And let's set up the main account name. So computer name, we'll just call it Juice. Let's type in a password. And require my password to log in, sure. Now, when I install Ubuntu, I always like to click the little arrow down here so I can see what's happening behind the scenes. And then you can have the wizard display all the cool features up here. So what we'll do is we'll let Ubuntu install, and then we will come back when it's done. All right, so felt like 45 minutes later, we got to the point where we can finally reboot the box. So let's click restart now. Nice. So we'll give it a moment and give it a chance to get its bearings, and then we'll log in. Please remove the installation medium, then press enter. Well, I'm just going to click in here and press enter. It's booting from the hard disk. All right, so let's log in with the credentials we created during setup. Now, we don't have an internet connection here because right now we're not connected to anything. So that's probably one of the first things we're going to want to do is connect out to like a router or a switch or something so we can update this appliance. Looks like I put the wrong password in here. Let's see. All right, so things went horribly wrong. I was installing Ubuntu 22, which is Jammy Jellyfish, I believe is the name. This guy right here. And I got to a black screen. Like I couldn't get past it. And so the moral of the story is sometimes you shouldn't use the bleeding edge releases of an operating system in your lab environment. It's nice to stay current, but there could be errors, unexpected errors. So I ended up uninstalling Jammy Jellyfish and downgrading to Focal Fossa. So what you'll do when you set this up in your lab is you'll just get a release that's 2 versions back and download that image and then rename it to cd-rom.iso. Right, so here you can see we've got the version 20, cd-rom.iso, and that is the version that I copied over here and built the hard drive out and fixed the permissions. Right, so here you can see I'm in the 22 folder, and all I did was I created the hard drive, 32 gigabytes, and I also fixed the permissions with this command. Once I did that, I went through the installer, which is almost identical to Jammy Jellyfish, and then I got to this point. So the older version of Ubuntu Focal Fossa worked fine. You can see I can log in, everything's great. Problem is we don't have internet connectivity. Right, so what I want to do actually, see it says connection failed, is I want to set this up. What we're going to do, this is going to be awesome. And I wasn't planning to do this originally, but since Jammy Jellyfish failed, I think this is a good opportunity to show you some of the awesome things you can do in EVE-NG. We're going to set up an environment, all right? And we're going to have 2 different networks. We're going to have a DMZ, we're going to have the internet, we're going to have a Palo Alto firewall, and we're going to put Juice Shop in the DMZ. So this will become Juice Shop. And what is this? Don't send system info. All right. Yeah, so this will become Juice Shop, and we're going to set this thing up. So what we'll do in the next lecture is we will actually configure the Palo Alto Networks firewall. But the first thing we should do is clear out our topology. So I'm going to just stop everything. Close out of this. And literally, I'm just going to delete it all. Now, by doing this, we still have the images inside of EVE-NG, so we're not having to do everything from scratch. But this is a great opportunity for us now to set up our lab the way we want it to be. Okay, so let's just do that. Let's set it up legit, the right way. I'll see you guys in the next lecture when we set things up. All right, guys, so let's build this topology out, replete with our vulnerable application sitting inside of our DMZ. So we'll kick things off with the network. And we're going to create the internet. All right, that's cloud 0, save. Now we've got the internet, great. Let's create our firewall. Palo Alto. We can just use these icons here. We don't have to get too crazy with this. So 4 Ethernets are fine. Palo Alto, we'll call it Palo Alto. 4 Ethernets is fine. Save. All right. Now, what else do we want? Well, we want to zoom in a little bit. Okay, now let's go ahead and grab our server. So we'll say node. This will be Linux. We'll use focal fossa. This will be our juice shop. There's a server image is already there. RAM a little bit too much. 2048 is good. All right, have that guy sitting up here. Then we need our PCs. So we'll say node, and let's go ahead and create our Windows PC. Windows 11 is good. We'll name it PC1. Desktop image works. And I believe we need to put 4 gigs of RAM for that. All right, great. Then what we can do is add our attacker. So we'll say Linux, Kali. And this will be our attacker. You know what? Now I've got to mismatch my icon, so I'm going to have to fix that. All right, so save this. Let's go ahead and update these icons. Can't do it. I can't let it stay this way. Come on, I know I'm not the only person that does this. I know I'm not the only person that does this. There's somebody else watching this video right now that is doing the same thing, even if I didn't do it here, because it would bother the heck out of them. All right, so PC, where are you? There we go. All right, lab is looking good. Let's move this stuff over. And I like it so far. Okay, now, what are we gonna do next? First thing we need to do is we need to set up some connections here. So we're gonna say that, well, Kali is gonna be connected to the internet, right? He's gonna come into our DMZ. So we'll set him into our internet. And then we'll say Palo Alto. Palo Alto gig 11 will be connected to the internet. We also need a management network so we can manage the device. So we'll say management. And put this guy here. We'll connect him to the management interface. So far, I'm liking it. So far, so good. All right, now juice shop. We'll connect the DMZ. So Palo Alto 1.2. Does that work? How about we change it to 1.3? That'll be our DMZ. And juice shop only has one interface, which is fine. And then for our PC, we'll connect this guy. Only has one interface. We'll connect him to 1.2. All right, very, very nice. Okay, so now that we've got this set up, let's go ahead and start working on some things. So let's power on our Palo Alto Networks firewall, because we know that's going to take a while to boot. And you know what we'll also do? I think we'll create this firewall as our DHCP server, guys. So you guys are going to get a bonus. You're going to get the full shebang in, in these next couple of lectures, because we're going to set this up the right way. What else can we do here? I guess we can add some shapes. Circle. We'll say DMZ. I have a hard time picking colors here. I don't know what my problem is. So we can say text, DMZ, font size. Let's make that kind of big. 24. Do we need a background color? Transparent, yes. Okay. Put this as DMZ, duplicate. We'll name this LAN, duplicate, make that the WAN. All right, then what we can do is we can go to this circle, duplicate, put this guy here, and we'll change the color a little bit. How about like a green color? That kind of reminds me of the LAN. I know these colors are ugly. I just can't get them perfect. Ah, looks so ugly. Maybe darker, darker. Okay, guys, I promise I'll stop being so annoying. All right, WAN. All right, duplicate. Got all these bubbles everywhere. And let's see. How about we make this red because it's untrusted. It's the evil internet. It's where people like the hackers live. Right? Can I redo this bubble? Yes, I can. Very cool. Okay, so I can do that. Put this here. All right, so wow, that took a lot longer than I expected. But anyway, we've got that up. Let's go ahead and see if we can go to our Palo Alto Networks firewall. Okay, so it is still booting. What we'll do is we'll leave off here, we'll wait for this to boot up, and then once it's done, we'll log in and we'll start our configuration, guys. See you in a little bit. Peace. All right, so our appliance finally came up. You can see we got the IP 192.168.126.132. So I just went to that web page here, and then we can just log in with our credentials, right? The one we created when we set up the Palo Alto firewall. The default username and password is admin and admin. You're prompted to change it. And so I'm using the new changed password to access the Palo Alto GUI. And really our first order of business is to create our zones, right? We can't really do anything without setting up these zones. We've got it beautified inside our topology, but it's not actually configured yet on the Palo Alto. Technically, you need to rotate this a little bit. Because that's the way the zone is set up. The zone includes the interface. Oh my gosh, it's looking like a flower. All right, but anyway, that's the way it's supposed to be. And I guess in my excitement, I typoed the password. All right, so we didn't actually commit our changes. So let's just use the old password and then we'll create our new password. In Palo Alto, you have to commit after you make every action. So after you do something, you need to commit. That's like Palo's way of saving the changes to disk. So here we are logged into the appliance. And the first thing we need to do is configure our zones. So to do that, we can click on Network. And then we can go to Zones. So we need 3 zones, right? We need the LAN, the WAN, and the DMZ. So let's go ahead and click Add. And the first one, we'll just call it LAN. And the type will be layer 3. Let me zoom out one notch. There we go, that looks a little better. Okay, we'll add another zone, right? Because we also need the WAN. That type is also going to be layer 3, meaning it's layer 3 of the OSI model. It's that deals with logical addressing, IP addresses. And let's see, DMZ. That's also layer 3. And I have full courses on networking basics. If you want to learn about the layers of the OSI model and what they mean and how that all works, you can check those out on this platform. All right, so we've got the zone set up. Now let's go ahead and set it up so we can ping the relevant interfaces here. So we can go down to Network Profiles and specifically Interface Management. We want to set it up so we can actually ping these interfaces. So I'm going to click Add. I'm going to name this ping, whatever interface we apply this management profile to will take these settings. So we're saying we want to be able to ping whatever interface we apply this profile to. Hope that makes sense. It will in a second. All right, so now let's go to our interfaces. And this is the part that's really important, right? I mean, every part's important, but this part's really important. So you see we've got all these interfaces here. If we go into a topology, we see that ETH11 is our WAN, and ETH12 is our LAN, and 13 is DMZ. So if we go to 11, let's go back here. 11, let's configure that guy. So we'll say, yes, this is the WAN. The type is layer 3. See, virtual router. We'll use the default. In the security zone, this is why we created those zones earlier. What do you think it's going to be? WAN, right? IPv4. Let's go ahead and add our interface. So we'll put this address as 192.160. Let's see, 168.126.250. How about that? Let's cancel that. Let's put /24 so we don't have to put the mask in separately. /24. I think that works. Click OK. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to do. I need to put the management profile on here. See, the management profile is empty. So let's go back to ETH11. Advanced. And where are we? Management profile. Remember we created ping, right? That way we can actually ping it. Everything else looks pretty good. All right, 1.2. This is our LAN, right? 1/2. And security zone will be LAN. IPv4. Let's make the default gateway for our LAN hosts 10.1.10.250/24. And of course, we want to apply the management profile. So we can ping this interface as well. Now in a production network, you probably don't want people pinging your interfaces, so you probably wouldn't set it up this way. But this is our lab, so it's optimized for learning. And then 1/3, this is our last interface. And you can see 1/3 is our DMZ. Layer 3 is the interface type. You guys already know how to do this now. Default, security zone, DMZ. IPv4, let's go ahead and make an IP address for this subnet. 172.16.10.250, how about that? /24. And advanced. What can we do here? Yes, we need the management profile. Ping. All right, that's looking pristine. All right, so now we need to set up our virtual routers. So we can go to network, virtual routers. We need a default route out so we can get out to the internet. So we're going to modify this default virtual router because that's the one we set for all of our interfaces. Click a static route. We'll add one. We'll just name it like internet. Destination, all right, where are we going? Well, this is the syntax for a default route. If there's no more specific route, then what we want to do is we want to go send all other traffic out. What interface? What do you think it's going to be? ETH1, 2, or 3? Well, if we look at the topology, ETH1 is for the WAN, right? So we're going to say ETH1. And the next hop IP address, this needs to be the IP address of like the default gateway on our physical machine, like our actual physical router that gets us out to the internet outside of this virtual environment. So for me, that's 192.168.126.1. Okay, that looks good. Let's create a security policy to allow the traffic. So we'll say policy security add. Call this allow everything. And for the source, we'll say if the source zone is LAN or DMZ. And the destination is the internet, which is our WAN. Then we can say any application, any service, any URL category. We'll just log at the session start. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can see our hit counts when we start to actually set this up. Now we need to set up NAT, so we can go policies, NAT, the network address translation, that is. I know there's a lot of little things here. If you're confused about any of it, you can just go through the other training I have offered on this platform, and I break down a lot of this into digestible, bite-sized, easy to understand nuggets of information. All right, so in NAT, we'll say add NAT for LAN and DMZ. Okay, now for the original packet, we're going to add, if the packet is from the LAN or the DMZ. Actually, let's just do the LAN. We're going to have to set up static NAT for the DMZ. The destination zone, if that is WAN, so the source zone is LAN, destination zone is WAN. Then under translated packet, what we want to do is port address translation, also known as NAT overload, also known as dynamic IP import. And we're going to set that up for an interface address, specifically our outgoing, that is our egress interface, which is eth11, which has the following IP address. So IP import, that means we're going to overload the public IP. We're pretending like 192.168.126.250 is our public IP, also known as our inside global in Cisco speak. Inside meaning it belongs to us, we control it, and global meaning it's public. I know it says it's private, but we're pretending that it's public. We're pretending that our ISP gave us this IP. And then we're going to overload, that is, take all the source IPs inside of our LAN and translate them to this particular source IP. So we're translating our private RFC 1918 private IPs to this public, quote unquote, public IP, and we're just translating the ephemeral source ports so that we can get out. And this is how it's actually done in production environments almost everywhere. So this is very realistic. Okay, that looks pretty good. One other thing, I think I want to set up DHCP. So let's go to network, DHCP, click on add, and the interface that we want is our internal interface, eth12. Set the mode to auto. We'll ping the IP when allocating so we don't get duplicates. And then we'll create a pool of IPs to allocate from. 10.1.10.2 to 10.1.10.50. And we don't have many devices on our LAN. So I messed this up a little bit. That looks right. So let's see if we can configure options for this. Options, yes. All right, so our gateway will be 10.1.10.250. I think that's what we said. 255, 255, 255.0. We'll hand out a Google IP for DNS. And everything else looks pretty good here. That interface is correct. All right, save that. Well, we didn't save it yet. We're just, save information. Microsoft Edge will save. No, I don't want Microsoft. No, thanks, Edge, go away. What are you doing? I said save that and Edge jumps to the screen. Voice recognition right there, right? All right, so I need to commit Palo Alto save, commit all changes, commit. If you don't do this, everything you did will not be saved. So we'll let this save, and in the next lecture, we will proceed with our static NAT configuration. See you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so what we're going to do now is set up static NAT, also known as destination NAT for Palo Alto. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically say our juice shop application will have the IP 172.16.10.0 10.10.25. So we can set up what's known as destination NAT. And the initial flow is going to come from the quote unquote internet, right? Our Kali box. So the source zone should be the outside, it should be WAN, and the destination is also outside. Even though the server's on the DMZ, the client is hitting an outside mapped IP. So it's also on the outside. And I know it sounds confusing, but we'll basically break this down, right? Because the initial traffic flow is coming from the outside. It's going to a server in our DMZ, which is also on the outside from the perspective of the requesting client. In this case, our Kali attacker. So let me show you what we're going to do here. We're going to say, all right, policies NAT, add NAT for outside to DMZ. So for original packet, the source zone is going to be WAN. The destination zone is also going to be the WAN. And the destination address, we can add that here. 172.16.10.25. And the translated packet is we want to do destination address translation. And it's going to be for a static IP. So the translated address is going to be 172.16.10.25. Then everything else looks good. We don't need a translated port, so I'll click OK. So now we have NAT for outside to DMZ. And we also have the other rule, NAT for land and DMZ, right? So source zone is WAN, destination zone is WAN. This address, right? This is our internal server. Well, it's going to be our internal server, Juice Shop. And we're going to do destination translation on that address. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, it'll make sense once we really start to build this out. Then we can go to policies, security, and we'll create a new one. So we have the allow everything, but we're going to create another one. We'll call this one outside to DMZ. Okay, now we'll go to source. The source zone is going to be the WAN. There we go. The destination is going to be our DMZ. Okay. Now the destination address is going to be 192.168.126.132. In other words, it's the outside interface of our route, of our firewall. This guy, ETH11, our quote unquote public IP. Applications, we're not blocking down any applications. We're basically allowing port scans and any kind of attacks from any ports. We're not blocking anything because we're learning. We're trying to attack this vulnerable Juice Shop web app. Services, we don't really care about any of those. We'll log at session end. If we had profiles that we wanted to add here, and we had licensing, we could include all kinds of stuff like IPS and Wildfire and antivirus stuff. Really, really cool. It's what makes the Palo Alto so great, but we don't have that license. This is just an eval copy. All right, we'll click OK. And always don't forget to commit. Once you're done, you always have to commit. So we're going to commit all changes. And then when this is done, we'll try to get on the internet from our Ubuntu VM. All right, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. All right, so now it's time to test our network configuration, right? So we're gonna hop in to our VM. I'm gonna log in with my creds. So obviously it's saying connection failed, activation of network connection failed, right? There's no network connection. So let's use netplan to statically configure an IP address for this host. So I'm just going to jump into the terminal. And what we'll do is we will first see what directory we're in. Okay, let's cd into etc netplan. Good, good. We've got this YAML file. So we can use this configuration file to essentially set a static IP. First, you'll notice that our ENS3 interface does not have any IP address. So I'll save that to the clipboard, Control-Shift-C. Now that I've got that saved, I can open up this NetPlan file so we can edit it. Vim is not here. Cool. How about V? All right. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is press I to go into insert mode. Whoa. Escape DD. It might be easier to use nano. This is V, not VIM. So some of the shortcuts I'm used to might not work. :Q bang enter. Let's just make sure we didn't accidentally modify the file. Okay, we didn't. And the reason I say that is because tabs are critical in these YAML files. If you mess that up, you can break everything. So we'll say sudo nano, and we'll open it this way. Okay, so what we want are Ethernets. Just like that. And we will tab over twice, and we'll say DHCP4 is no. Everything needs to line up here. The addresses that we have configured are just one, right? 172.16.10.25/24. That will be our static IP. Our gateway 4 is going to be the IP address of ETH1/3. So 172.16.10.254. And we need name servers. 1.2. Addresses, this will be Google 8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4. That looks good. So you can see here it says Control O. We'll write it out, so Control O. And yes, we will save it that way. Good. So we wrote the file and then Control X to exit. Let's confirm our settings took. They did. Very nice. I'm so used to Vim and not Nano, so that's why I'm moving so slowly through it, because I'm not as comfortable in Nano. Okay, so now what we can do is we can check the configuration. We can run sudo netplan try to see if there's any errors. And it did catch an error. You saw that up there. Okay, I'll click cancel on that. DHCP4. It's saying there's an error there, and oh, we didn't put the adapter. Yep. Okay. Let's go back here. There we go. I copied it to the clipboard, but I never actually used it. I believe this just needs to be one space here. So let's Control O to save that. Control X to exit. Verify the configuration. Okay, got that there, and now let's try the netplan. All right, it looks pretty good. Yes, we want to keep the settings. So now if we run IPA, we've got our IP address. So the next step then is to confirm that we can actually get out to the internet. This will help us to see if NAT is actually configured correctly here. Let's see, google.com. So that's taken some time. Sudo apt update. Are we able to update anything? Trying to see if it's a DNS issue or if it's a network connectivity issue. Here it looks like this is timing out all the way. So let's pivot over to the Palo and see if we can go to monitor and find out what's going on here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything here. Can we look at the sessions? All right, no sessions either. So let's look at our configuration. So here's our rules. Let's see if we have any hits. 0 hit count. So the rules aren't even getting hit. Okay, none of them are getting hit. So let's go back to our interfaces. Okay, we can see all the interfaces are active. That's what the link state green means. 172.16.10.250 DMZ. Well, that gateway was definitely wrong. So let's put 250. If you put the wrong default gateway, it's not going to work. Let's go back into our net plan. Okay, Control O to save it, Control X to exit. Let's confirm that we updated the file correctly. Looks like we did. Let's try the net plan and make sure we don't have any other syntax errors that we unwittingly introduced. I don't see any. So now we should have the right IP address and gateway. Oh, we don't even have route. Okay, that's fine. Let's just see if we have the right information now. If we try to run sudo apt update, is it still going to fail? And if it still fails, it looks like it will. Do we at least get hits for our policy? LAN to WAN? No hits. Let's see it. We're trying to go through 1.3 out 1.1. So DMZ to WAN. Okay, well here you see there's actually no source zone for this zone. So that's why nothing's happening. So we need to add the DMZ as a zone here. So the source zone will add DMZ. All right, click OK. Very cool. So now we can commit these changes. All right, so we are rapidly hitting the finish line here. I'm going to hit close. By the way, when you hit close here, it doesn't actually stop the commit. You can still view the commits. But here you can see there's no pending changes. So we should be good there. And our hit count is still 0. Let's see if we can get that to increment. Still nothing. Let's see, can we confirm our network settings here? Look at that. And now I did get a hit, but DNS doesn't look like it's working. Yeah, we got 46 hits here. Let's see, can we look at any sessions? Do we have any sessions? Okay, so we have the sessions. You can actually see the DMZ going out to the WAN, trying to make the DNS request. And is it being blocked? Nope, allow everything. Let's click one of these. Client to server is a direction. So that is active, and then server to client is also active. Flow. We should be getting, you can actually see the translation too. It's coming back to 192.168.126.250. So, okay, we're almost there. Really, really close. Let's see 192.168.126.250. Can I ping that address? Okay, what about 132? So we can get to the Palo Alto's external interface, but .250 is not pingable, and that is an address that it's trying to reach. Now here it's saying the link is active. All right, you guys, so many hours later, I fixed the problem. It is not something that is intuitive. So when you log into the PAVM, you can mouse over the logo and you can see the device name, the management net mask, and the management default gateway. Okay. This IP right here, 192.168.126.132, that is the IP address of the management interface of our firewall. That's this guy right here. So we could label that. But before we do, I want to show you something. That management IP, seen here by DHCP, was received by the physical router in my home network, the one that gets me out to my internet service provider. This default gateway is how the management address gets off of this virtual environment onto the real environment, into like my real network. And so what I did here was I went into network, virtual routers. This is why you should never give up, because I was getting pretty frustrated, but you know, I knew I could fix it. It was one of those things where we were so close. I could see the hits, the traffic hits, but we just weren't quite there yet. But if you go into static routes, everything here is basically right, except for this. The next top IP address was set to 192.168.126.1, which is the IP address of my router. Like that's how I manage my home router. It should have been set to 126.2, which is the management gateway. The next hop for this static route, you know, any route that doesn't match anything else, will be routed to the Palo Alto's management gateway. And when you set it up that way, you get beauty. Okay, this is what you get. You get this. You get, first of all, IPA. You can see my IP address, 172.16.10.25. IPR, you can see my default gateway is 172.16.10.250. So of course, I can ping my default gateway. That's really good. And consequently, obviously, I could ping myself. But now we can also ping Google. 0% packet loss. And now, therefore, this web application should load. Come on, baby. Let's see that Google. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Man, it feels good when you work at something so hard you finally get what you want. All right. So we are here. Google is loaded. And in the next lecture, we will set up the OWASP juice shop. Okay, guys? No thanks here. Because we now have everything ready. And for example, if I go to monitor and I look at the traffic logs, this is looking good. Web browsing. That is our Google access. Port 80, baby. All right, so that's what we'll do. In the next lecture, we will set up Juice Shop. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace. Update our local libraries so that we can get the latest version of OWASP Juice Shop. So I'm going to run, first I'm going to clear everything out. Sudo apt update. Put in my password. This is exactly what we wanted to see. This is a good sign. And while that loads, we can get OWASP Juice Shop. OWASP Juice Shop GitHub. Right, we want to get the one hosted on GitHub. And there it is right there. Last updated 4 days ago. So this is a very active project, as you can see. So let's go to the setup and we want to install from source. So we're just going to run this by copying this to our clipboard. Oh, first we need to install Node.js. Okay, so let's see what version do we need. I think it tells us. Node.js version compatibility. Okay, so 17.x is the latest version supported. So that's what we want for 64-bit Linux. And let's see if we can grab it from here. .x is maintenance, so we should probably get 16.x. All right, so we want 16, and let's read this right here. Okay, so we definitely want Linux. We don't want ARM, but we want 64-bit. So that means we want this guy right here. This is the GZ file. Let's save it. All right, so that download is almost done. Once it's done, we'll unzip it, install, and then we'll run git clone. So let's see, it's probably in downloads. Sudo tar extract b verbose, and the file name is node. Let's get in there and see what we have. There we go. So we do have node. All right. So now let's do sudo and then git clone. Can't do that. Sudo apt install git. So we're going to git, that is G-E-T, git, G-I-T. And git clone is just a way of downloading something. I'm using our version control, a solution known as git. And this has been a beast of a lecture, hasn't it? Wow. I'm glad you guys went on this journey with me. We're in this together, guys. We're building this lab out together. And if you learned anything new and you're enjoying this course, please leave me a 5-star review. Share the word with your friends. And let's see if we can fill this course up. Get as many people in here as possible. Share the love on social media. Share it on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all your social feeds. We really want to get as many people in here as possible. All right, guys? Really appreciate you helping me out there. All right, so this looks like it's done. Or I'm just, there we go. All right. Now let's try git clone. Yes. All right, when the git clone finishes, go into the clone directory, cd juice shop, and then run npm install. I don't know if npm is in our path. Which npm? We do have npm up, but we don't. Huh. So maybe we should install that too. I actually thought that installing node would have installed npm. Sudo apt install npm. It probably has something to do with the way we installed it. Let's clear that out. Because we just downloaded the tarball. We didn't do it through like Ubuntu's package manager. But now I'm concerned that the version of npm that we install might be too new for the npm package. So if it is, don't worry, we'll uninstall it. We're going to get this to work, guys. Bottom line is we're going to get this to work. No matter what it takes, you're going to have an awesome lab because I really want to show you the cool things you can do in EVE-NG. All right. So that's done. Good. cd tab juice shop. And then in here, all we need to do is run npm install and then npm start, and then we just go to localhost 3000 and we should be there. Only has to be done before first start or when you change the source code. Okay, npm install. Okay. So is npm done installing? Nope, not yet. Let's let it install and we'll come back when it's done. So let's see if npm install now works. Let's go into the juice shop directory, npm install. Suki now, what's up? What's up? Installing this vulnerable VM in our DMZ. Okay, so we will let this install, and then when it's done, we will run npm start and attempt to access juice shop on port 3000. If it works, then we'll test static destination NAT to confirm that our attacker, which is currently off, but will be on in a moment, can access our vulnerable web app through the firewall, and we'll get all that log telemetry inside of Palo. If so, then we've completed our lab, and then we can run all the attacks that you can run in OWASP juice shop. All right, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, so it finished. It took about 15 minutes. We do see this error message here. There was a timeout. It looks like it took too long to fetch a script from the npmjs.org registry. TypeScripts. And there's also a log if we need to jump into that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to ignore it and see if we can get this thing to run anyway. So we'll just say npm start. All right, what do we get here? Did you mean to install? So maybe it won't work. Let's see. Sudo npm start. Node modules missing. Let's see if we can clean out npm and just install a specific version. I sure hope you know what you're doing. Wow, that is a great log message. Sudo npm install in. Let's see what's going on here. So I was trying to install the 16.15 version of Node. Hopefully this fetch doesn't time out. Looks like it didn't. So let's try Node version. That's good. So let's try npm start. This is a different error. Let's run it without sudo, as the instructions specify. Module not found. Unsupported JS. npm CLI. Cannot find module server. Oh, that doesn't say server. It says simver. This text is very small. You're seeing it large. It's very tiny for me because my screen resolution is really high. So let's try npm install simver. npm version. So npm isn't even working. There's a lot missing here. Why can't things be easy? Well, then people like us wouldn't have jobs, right? All right, so all these nodes are not here. Let's just kick it off and just see if it works. All right, all these errors, timeouts, you know what? Forget that. We're just going the Docker way because Docker is easy. It handles the dependencies for us. We don't have to worry about any of this craziness. So if at first you don't succeed like the Aaliyah song says, dust yourself off and try again. Right, so we're going to install Docker for Ubuntu. And this is great because the container will include all the dependencies, everything we need, and we should get this going in no time. No, my luck though, that probably won't happen. But let's check it out, guys. Let's check this out, right? So we're on Docker's website. Get started. Download Docker for Linux. There we go, Docker Ubuntu, the easiest way to run Docker on Ubuntu. That's what we want. I like easy. Yo, you guys are really gonna make me sign up? Like, no, I'm not doing that. Not doing it, I refuse. Sudo apt info docker. So this actually isn't Docker. Hold on. Sudo apt info docker dash. Tab complete doesn't work. What about CE? That's not a package. I thought that was the Docker Community Edition package name. You know what? We're going to Google. We're going to do this. We're going to succeed. Install Docker Ubuntu. All right, DigitalOcean. Okay, we already did apt update. Let's grab this guy. Control-Shift-V. And I'm literally just going down the list. Yes, I want to continue. Control-Shift-V. All right. Where are we? Add the Docker repository to the apt sources. That's probably why we couldn't install it before, because it wasn't in our apt sources library. Control-Shift-V. So make sure you're about to install Docker from the repo instead of the default Ubuntu repo. So we'll do that. We got to install from the Docker repo. Wait for this to finish. Can you guys tell I'm getting impatient? I just want this thing to work. You know, I mean, this took a lot longer than I expected. Hopefully you guys are getting a lot of value out of this and you're learning a lot. Control-Shift-V so that we use the Docker repo. Now let's try to install Docker. Yes, we want to continue. All right, so we're all good. All right, and paste that in. Yes. Now we're cooking with gas. All right, so let's grab the rest. Control-Shift-V. Let's see, access denied. That's okay. Sudo bang bang. That's how we roll. When Linux says no, we say, do it! Sudo bang bang is an awesome trick. It just executes the last command with sudo rights. And when this is done, we will run. And then we'll get to localhost 3000. All right, this thing is just swimming along. Control-Shift-V, and this should do it, guys. All right, permission denied again. That's okay. Instead of doing sudo bang bang, I'm just going to do Control-AA to go to the front, and then I'll type sudo. And the reason I'm doing that is because it says got permission denied when trying to connect to the Docker daemon socket. Permission denied, right? So let's see if we can force it to run what God writes. Look at that. All dependencies to package.json are satisfied. Don't you love Docker? I mean, it just works. Look at that. Port 3000 is available. I mean, it's just, it's on, it's working. Do you remember all the dependency errors we got back here when we tried to run this thing, like without Docker? I don't even think I have it in my history. I mean, it was a mess. Oh, I don't have it there, but you guys remember, right? I mean, do you see now why Docker is awesome? If you probably, maybe you already knew Docker was awesome, but now you really know why it's awesome, right? Because now we have port 3000 open. And what that means, my friends, is I can click this and something magical will happen. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Boom, 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 here it is, guys. It's our vulnerable web app. Welcome to OWASP Juice Shop. I click dismiss. There's cookies. I mean, this is an awesome, awesome website. Gonna zoom out a little bit just so you guys can see. I mean, it is a full-featured, full-fledged vulnerable web application, and it is truly, truly one of the best. I mean, you can actually Google around. You can say like OWASP Juice Shop vulnerabilities. Let's see if we can find some of them. It's a great way to learn ethical hacking. Now we've got this thing sitting in our DMZ, which is just amazing. Look, broken authentication. We've got cross-site scripting. We've got cryptographic issues. I mean, there's 11 more rows, right? I mean, pwning.owasp-juice.shop. Look at all these vulnerabilities, guys. You can actually read this guy's blog. Look, hacking exercises, challenges. I mean, all of this, it's in your lab. You can learn all of these different attacks. Security through obscurity, improper input validation, sensitive data exposure, right? I can just click that right there. And you can see the access log, like gain access to any access log file in the server, right? All this stuff is now available for us, just like that. Tell me, is that not awesome? Now, what we need to do next is to see if we can get to this from Kali.